Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Ignacio Nunez. I serve as Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Arlington. I hereby call this regularly noticed meeting of the City of Arlington's Planning and Zoning Commission regular session to order for December the 4th, 2024. This time, I will again ask administration to read the speaker guidelines and general decorum. Please bear with us.
The City of Arlington fully embraces the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, where people of all identities and experiences are understood, appreciated, and fully included in the community, and where equitable treatment and outcomes prevail. We ask that citizens and other visitors in attendance assist in preserving the order and decorum of this meeting, and to provide for assistance at and participation in the meeting without fear of intimidation, threats, or hostility. Any person making personal, profane, hostile, slanderous, or threatening remarks, who uses vulgar or obscene language, who engages in any other actions that disturb or are calculated to disturb the meeting, or who becomes disruptive while addressing the Planning and Zoning Commissioners or while attending the Planning and Zoning meeting may be removed from the council chambers. All speakers shall address the commissioners and not the audience or city staff, and shall not call out individually named members of city staff or the public. For speakers tonight, when your name is called, please come to the microphone at the podium and state your name and city of residence for the record. The applicant will be asked to speak first and will be given 10 minutes to make a presentation. Speakers in support or opposition of the item will be given 5 minutes each to make their statements. If there are many speakers for an item, each speaker will be given 3 minutes to make their statements. The applicant will then be given 5 minutes for any rebuttal. If multiple speakers plan to provide the same or similar comments, those speakers may, if they so desire, designate one or more individuals to provide public comment on behalf of the group. A bell will signal at the end of each speaker's time. In consideration of other speakers, please conclude your comments promptly when you hear the bell. We ask that you address your comments to the Planning and Zoning Commissioners.
Thank you very much. A copy of the minutes of our November 13th, 2024 regular session agenda meeting were sent to all commissioners in advance. Were there any changes or corrections needed to the minutes? And Commissioner Sumter.
Now's the right time.
Yes.
SUP 24-9 had Commissioner Payne making the motion and also the second, so I think we need to correct that.
Who would like to claim the second? Do I have a volunteer? Commissioner Blake will be marked in the minutes as having made the second, and he was in attendance at that meeting. So with that change to the minutes, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? I have a motion by Commissioner Sumter and a second by Commissioner Blake. Please cast your vote. Motion passes 9-0. At this time, we're going to have a presentation by the City of Arlington's Bond Committee. And if you would please step forward and introduce yourself to the audience and us. Thank you very much. Lemuel.
Yes, thank you very much. Lemuel Randolph, Deputy City Manager. On November 13th, you received a full presentation regarding the 26 projects that the 19-member Citizens Bond Committee has selected for recommendation for consideration. And so tonight I have a brief presentation in the context of your pending vote on a resolution of support for this list of recommendations to the City Council. And so just to set the stage a little bit, at your earlier CPAC meeting, obviously impact fees is the base of that, and it really represents a part of this capital improvement program cycle that we're on an annual basis. But the phase that we're in now as it relates to the bond committee is phase 4, which is the bond program development phase. And so that's when specific projects are identified, and then ultimately the city council has an opportunity to decide whether they want to support that in terms of a vote of the citizens or not. Just to give you a little context to date, So in May of this year, we briefed the city council on the whole concept of a bond program. And that effort began in May. In June, the committee was appointed. There were, I believe, 40 applicants for those 19 positions. Over the summer, staff were hard at work in developing the updated cost estimates for priority projects. And then we also had the debt capacity determined by our finance department at about $198 million. On the 27th, the committee was officially selected and approved by council, and then the real work began with the committee, September and October in particular, with a variety of presentations from staff with respect to all of the identified needs within those areas, as well as a significant and robust opportunity for questions and answers about a variety of topics related to the bond work. So the committee charge was to prioritize a list. It started at about $400 million worth of ask, and that bond capacity limit was determined to be $198 million. And so the committee's charge was to take the list of identified projects and then identify the priorities that totaled no more than that $198 million. And so this represents the final list of recommendations, 26 projects, divided into the public safety category, libraries, downtown city administrative buildings, parks, and public works, taking the majority of the recommendations. And so as far as the next steps, again, you'll have an opportunity to vote on that resolution of support this evening. And then on the 17th of December, we'll provide a full presentation to the city council with respect to the recommendations that were offered. And that will follow with, I would imagine, considerable discussion at the council level for the months of December, January, and then by February 11th is the date legislatively that is required to call a May election. And so if the council wants to make that choice, then they would have to do so by February 11th. And that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Randolph. So, thank you. So at this point in time, we're going to have a public hearing on this, and in support, we have Cheryl Knight. Cheryl, would you come forward and tell us a little bit about your committee? And it says non-speaker.
I did say non-speaker, but I'm happy to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies.
No,
but
no
God, I'm glad
problem.
I dragged you up here.
Thank you, commissioners. And I just wanted to say that I served on the bond committee for the first time, and it was a very fulfilling and informative process. And I believe that the committee worked together very well to bring you a very well thought out list of projects, and I would ask for your support.
Thank you very much, and thank you for volunteering for the committee and for caring about the city. Thank you. Any other speakers in support? Gosh, do we have any speakers in opposition? At this point, I'm going to ask for a resolution of support and a second. And as that's happening, I just want to say again, we heard a long presentation at our last planning and zoning work session upstairs a couple weeks ago, and we're very impressed by the hard work of the committee. It takes citizens working and their input, and so thank you for volunteering. I really appreciate that, and I want to put that on the record. We have a motion to approve. Yes, Commissioner Finley. Good. Yes.
Mr. Randolph, I have some questions for you. When I started looking at this morning, and I have a question, I'm not quite understanding the financial impact statements on the staff report. Are you estimating the debt service rate? Are you saying that it can fluctuate?
So that would be a question best reserved for our controller, Ethan Kloss. I don't think Ethan's here. We can get you a specific answer to that. I'm not the financial expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn relative to that. I will say, though, that one of the financial principles of the city council is that we will not raise taxes as a result of bond indebtedness. And so that's been part of that philosophy for some time, and it's not intended to change it anytime soon.
Okay, and I understand that, and that's why I went back and looked at how we've done this in the past. And so when I pulled the staff report for the issuance and sale of the bonds back in March of 2024, it stated under financial impact, these issuances will have no effect on the tax rate. Okay, so then I went one step further and went to the budget in brief on the budget that was passed for 2025. And it showed that the debt service rate for 2024 was 18.18, and in 2025 it was increased to 18.52. So my question is, how do we keep this from happening where we've got this financial impact on these staff reports that seem to be inconsistent?
That's a good question. Obviously, I don't come to the P&D very often, and so is not as familiar with some of the protocol that you typically would see. So let me dig into that a little bit, and we can get you a more robust response.
Okay, well, here's my problem. I don't feel comfortable voting to approve this without knowing what I'm approving. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question. So, Commissioner Finley, go back to that 18-point-something% versus, would you read that back again? And what is that?
Okay, so basically, the budget in brief for the general fund, and it talks about the split, it has the split. The general fund tax rate for 2024 was $40.80. Okay, it was increased in the budget for fiscal year 2025 to 41.46, an increase of 0.66. The debt service tax rate, which we said in the staff report on March 26th that was approved by council, it said that these issuances will have no effect on the tax rate. But the debt service tax rate also increased, so both of these tax rates increased in fiscal year 2025 when we said it was not going to happen. So now I'm looking at this staff report, and what it says is it's not going to impact the overall property tax rate or the property tax split. And the debt service portion of the property tax rate is estimated to remain at 0.1852 of the total property tax rate of 0.5998. So I don't think you can have it both ways. It's got to, it's got to be, if it's going to fluctuate, you can't say it's not going to change.
So, I will speak from my experience having served on council. It seemed, and whoever wants to correct me, please feel free to do so. My understanding was that the city has a clear mission to not allow any debt that is issued for bonds to affect the property tax rate. So pick any number you want. Maybe we have $200 million in bonds outstanding, and we are paying down the debt on that $200 million of bonds. And that payment of debt every single year gets less and less until the $200 million is paid off. So the city has to budget within its total budget a certain percentage of the total funds that come in that have to go to pay off that debt, and it can never exceed a certain percentage. So pick a number, 18%. We'll use that because that's the number. So to me, that means that if the city's coffers have 400 million, that means that 18% of that will always be used to pay off bond debt. And so the city will add more bond debt as they pay off bond debt so that there's almost constantly a certain amount of money from the city's revenue that is always earmarked to pay off the debt. Now, on a year-to-year basis, depending on the interest rates, that percentage, I think, is going to change a little bit. And because the bonds they're not all going to be the same interest rate. And as you pay them off, other bonds may have a higher interest rate or a lower interest rate. And so I don't know that you can predict to an exact number or to an exact percentage exactly what you're going to do. All you can do is say our goal is to keep it somewhere around, or less than, if I recall correctly, less than 20% is the goal. So having said that, what is it about that process that you feel uncomfortable with?
Well, I understand how the debt service works. I understand selling bonds, how that works. What I don't understand is the verbiage that's used in the financial analysis and the impact. I don't understand that. I think the verbiage is inconsistent. I mean, they stated that when they sold bonds, it was not going to affect the tax rate. But in fact, it did affect the tax rate in the 2025 budget.
Did it, sir?
I think, it may have technically. My perspective on that is, and to Dr. Nunez's point, the threshold, the council policy, financial policy is less than 20%. And so that is the barrier, right? And so if it, I'm not here up here to be able to articulate all of the financials relative to this, and so I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's certainly consistent with our financial policies of being under 20%, well under 20%, under 19%. To the extent that that might fluctuate based on that language we use, I need to, again, dig into that and give you a more comprehensive answer. But as far as the principles of how the finances of the city are governed, this program is following those principles to a letter.
And I do understand that too, Mr. Randolph. I do understand that. My concern with this is that people need to understand what this means. And right now, we cannot come to a consensus amongst all of us what this means. And therefore, I cannot vote to approve this tonight.
Commissioner Ware.
Now that Commissioner Finley has brought this to light, when I read this, financial impact, proposed package will not impact the overall property tax rate or the property tax rate split. The debt service portion of the property tax rate is estimated to remain at 0.1852 of the 0.5998 total. To me, when I read that today earlier, again, I assumed that last year's rate was 0.1852. Last year's rate was 0.1818. So this has got me confused also as to the terminology on
Understood.
on this staff report. And I understand what the city is doing, but I think it needs to be very clearly stated that what do you mean by remain at 0.1852 when this is the first time that it's been 0.1852? Remained the same as previous estimates for this year as opposed to next year or this year or both last year, whatever year you're talking about? I think that just needs to be expressed a little more clearly. Well, a lot more clearly.
Certainly, no taken, absolutely.
And that may help solve the situation.
Any other comments? We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ware. We have a second by Commissioner Sumter. But before I do anything else, the public session is not yet closed. Is there any other comments or questions that anybody has before I close the public session on this item? I'm going to close the public session, and we can vote at this point. And the motion is a resolution to send this to council with a resolution of support. Cast your ballot. Cast your vote. There we go. Motion passes 7-2. Thank you very much for that discussion. It was worthwhile and it was very illuminating. Thank you very much. And sir, if you'll take that information back to council. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to a public hearing for our zoning cases. And our first case is zoning case PD 24-10, otherwise addressed at 300 East Stevens Street. This is an application for approval of a change in a zoning from airport overlay, general commercial, planned development for residential multifamily RMF 22 uses with a development plan on approximately 9.792 acres. At this time, I will ask Mr. Golston, our staff, to present his report on Stevens Street.
Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Clifford Golston, Principal Planner, Planning and Development Services. We have for you again PD 24-10 addressed at 300 East Stevens Street. Again, this is a 9.79 acre site, currently zoned airport overlay for general commercial with a request for airport overlay plan development for residential multifamily uses with a development plan. This is the site addressed again at 300 East Stevens Street, just south of East Stevens and west of Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Again, this is a case that you all have heard before on June 26th. Again, it was denied by a vote 2-7 by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it was appealed to council on August 6th, and they remanded it back to P&Z. And these are the site photos, again, the highlighted photos, just giving you glimpses of the site from different angles of Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. East Stevens Street is surrounded by commercial uses, commercial and industrial uses. And again, this is a surrounding site, again, just showing that the subject site you have some multifamily to the south, you have the commercial and industrial to the north, you have industrial zoning to the east, and the Arlington Municipal Airport also lies to the east as well. And based on the previous submittal, I'll just go through just kind of some of the changes. The changes include the overall number of units being reduced from 331 units to 324. The garages being removed on East Stevens Street and Dr. Martin Luther King Drive and relocated interior to the site. Ornamental iron fencing is replacing fencing along Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, replacing the masonry wall. The east and west elevations of Building 200 were reduced to meet the minimum UDC length requirements. Stucco was added as an additional exterior material, reducing the amount of cementitious fiberboard siding being used on each elevation, and the use of cementitious fiberboard material does not exceed the 50% on any elevation. 5,000 square foot of co-working space was added to the development, along with there will be 22 additional parking spaces adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Drive as well to accommodate that co-working space, which will be available for residents as well as non-residents. And a consulted noise study was provided assessing the impact of noise from the Arlington Municipal Airport on the site. And again, this is the layout. The primary access point is going to be off East Stevens Street with two access points. Again, on East Stevens Street and Dr. Martin Luther King Drive for exit only and emergency access. And just with the changes listing again, it goes from 331 to 334 units. The garages These two here, they have been removed from the previous submittal and added interior to the site. And the ornamental iron fencing, again, in this area on Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, the red portion is gonna be 3.5 feet in height, and the yellow portion is gonna be 6 feet in height with masonry columns. The development to the south, that multifamily development, it does have, along Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, it does have 6-foot ornamental iron fencing as well. And again, on these elevations, these two here, they've reduced to get under the length requirement. And again, stucco has been added as a material. And with the project changes, again, just highlight some of the elevations, just showing in each elevation, they've actually reduced the amount of cementitious material. And this is just the overall percentages, not each elevation, just overall percentages for each building. They've reduced that amount. They've added more brick as an exterior material. And they've also added stucco, which was not a part of the original material. And again, the co-working space will be located, it's be 5,000 square foot of co-working space located right here. It's gonna be adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Again, it'll also have the 22 parking spaces, as it will be for residents and non-residents alike. And also just getting to the deviations on the site again, it's RMF 22, which is 22 units per acre. The applicant is proposing 33 units per acre. A minimum 20-foot front setback is required along a local street. The applicant is proposing a 10-foot setback along East Stevens Street. The applicant may be able to better explain, but that's more for fire purposes as well. And also along, to Commissioner Sumter's point as well, upstairs, there will be access for those units facing Stevens Street. There will be access to those units. So basically, we'll have a door that they can walk out in that direction. And level 3 screening and buffering is required for properties adjacent to industrial properties, which requires a 30-foot landscape setback, buffer setback, and a 1 3-inch caliper tree per every 300 square feet of buffer area. The applicant is providing a 15-foot landscape buffer. It will have the required amount of trees. Also, there are garages on that portion of the property, and that's on the west property line. There's an existing industrial structure, so they'll have a 15-foot setback. They will have the required amount of trees, and there are also garages there that will provide a buffer to that area. And level 3 screening and buffering requires 100% masonry wall. Again, on that western property line, there's an existing ornamental iron fence. So that's just gonna continue that on that property line with what's already there. And again, 100% masonry wall is required along Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Again, they're providing a 3.5-foot tall ornamental iron fence along this roadway north of the egress point, which is this area. And they're providing 6-foot tall ornamental iron fencing with masonry columns south of that point, which is here. And keep in mind, again, the property to the south, it does have, on that back property line, the southern property line, there's, I think that the existing multifamily development, they haven't already done actually a new wood fence, and they have masonry or ornamental iron fencing along MLK Boulevard. It doesn't have columns, though, so they're kind of, their ornamental iron fencing would match what they have. And another deviation, new multifamily units of 100 or more units shall take primary access from an arterial street. Again, they're accessing, primary point of access is Stevens Street, which is a local street. And the off-street parking, surface parking shall not be located between any building and adjacent street except the parking or leasing office. Again, in this area where they're having the co-working space, which again will be used for residents and non-residents alike, will have access to that. So they're putting 22 parking spaces here to accommodate those who may be non-residents would have somewhere to park as well. And again, there will also be, there will have cluster of trees, landscaping as well, kind of shading that parking lot off. And the maximum building lengths shall be 180 feet. Again, a north-south elevations on all 3 buildings exceed that requirement, and the east-west elevation on building 100 exceeds that requirement. And cementitious fiberboard siding can only be used on multifamily structures that are 3 stories or less in height. Again, this is 4 stories in height. Again, they did add some stucco as compared to the original submittal as an exterior material, and the percentage of the material used on the elevations range from 27 to 49%, with the highest being 49% on the south elevation of Building 200. And the coordination with other plans, this area is designated as a regional activity center, however, which requires, it typically includes larger, more diverse uses, development opportunities for office, research facilities, recreation centers, commercial uses. So the thing to consider with this one is, should this be given, consideration should be given to the appropriateness of the location of the use at this intersection of these 2 corridors and as proximate to the Arlington Municipal Airport. And this is just multi-family unit saturation map, just showing some units within a 3-mile buffer of the area. Again, there are 4,900 multifamily units constructed citywide the last 3 years. 6,000 units have approved entitlements but have not been built. 1,000 units have been approved and permitted. Nearly 1,300 units are under construction. And again, just north of that, you have the MARC, which offers similar common amenities. Phase 1 there was 317 units completed. Phase 2 will consist of 332 units. And if the commission is inclined to approve this request, staff has the following considerations: that the minimum 20-foot setback along East Stevens Street be met, which again, they're doing the 10-foot for is fire purposes, actually. And the number of proposed units be reduced to meet the minimum density for the RMF2 zoning district. The cementitious fiberboard exterior materials be used for the structures be replaced with either brick, stone, or stucco to meet the minimum UDC requirements. Cementitious fiberboard, if used, shall be painted every 10 years as part of ongoing maintenance. The required 6 to 8 foot masonry wall be provided along Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. At a minimum, if the required masonry wall is not provided, a 6 to 8 foot tall ornamental iron fence with masonry columns be provided along the entire length of Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Now, we did receive, you should have in your case information, the applicant did provide 4 letters of support. Of course, we did have the letter from the airport as well in opposition. And they also included, it was a noise study by a consultant they hired. And the applicant is JPI, represented by Rusty Ross and Brian Grant, and the owner is Marbury Investments Limited. Staff is available for any questions.
At this time, are there any commissioners that have any questions of staff this time? Seeing none, we're going to open the public hearing, and we're going to call for the first speaker from the applicant. As the applicant comes forward, please state your name and the city of your residence, not the city of your office, and please address us up here. If anyone on the commission has a question for the applicant, then I'll call on each one of you if you have any questions. It's all yours.
Okay, all right. Nikki Moore with A.N. Moore Consulting, Colleyville, Texas. So good evening. City Council remanded this project back before P&Z based on some changes and also incorporating some mixed use at the suggestion of Councilmember Rebecca Boxall. I'd like to kind of go over some of those highlighted changes with you this evening since our last visit, but most prominent is the change to the Building 3 right there located at the hard corner of Stevens and MLK. Councilmember Boxall recommended that this be a statement corner in order to enhance this corridor as MLK Drive is scheduled to be extended. On that hard corner, there's 5,000 square feet of co-working space that's just going to add to that community office element. As the airport increases its business traffic, including private jets, it would be nice to offer them a place for them to have meetings and work while they're visiting us in town. And kind of going back to this previous slide, this rendering here shows that hard corner. space. It will be open to the public. There'll be a little bit of a plaza area, so we want this area to be very open and inviting. As you are going to be going down MLK and traveling south, this is heading into more of a residential corridor. You have single-family homes. You get into Green Oaks Boulevard, which has the public library and things of that nature, and so we want that to reflect the residential nature in which people are heading toward going south. The community is going to be vehicularly gated. Decorative iron fencing will be utilized on Stevens Street and around the corner at MLK Boulevard. Board-on-board fence along the southern boundary in between the multifamily properties. And then the existing iron fencing will be extended along the western border. I don't know if you recall from our last meeting here, the masonry wall as a landscape buffer will be up against some enclosed garages, and that would create dead space and limits visibility. And so in keeping the existing iron fencing with landscaping, it promotes that visibility to the site, but also reduces the ability for people to hide or to get into mischief. This is an example of one of the co-working spaces in another JPI project. The private offices rent for about $200 a month, and they are always full. Have a couple of more images here, kind of explaining how that works and functions. This rendering here is a street view from Stevens Street. I really want to kind of highlight the strong architectural corners coming off of the main entrance, but also draw your attention to the facade variation that we are able to achieve by using a variety of different architectural materials, including the glazing, masonry, stucco, and cementitious fiberboard. The main entrance off of Stevens for the Jefferson-Stevens project is thoughtfully placed on Stevens Street. The ground floor units will have direct access from the sidewalk to promote that urban feel and connect the residents to the commercial uses to the north. Our 10-foot setback variance does come from this design, as well as the fact that we are using Stevens Street as a for fire emergency services, and so the buildings can only be a maximum of 30 feet from the back of that curb. Parking is once again hidden, tucked behind the buildings and outside of the public realm. This is a view of the south side of the building, along with the resort-style amenities for residents to enjoy. I'd like to point out that once again, this is JPI's higher-end product, and while 4 stories, it allows us to do tuck-under garages with air-conditioned corridors and elevators. JPI is exceeding all of the UDC requirements in terms of resident experience, and that includes square footage, the parking, and open space. And I know one of the main concerns of this project, surrounding this project, is location, right? There is a need for, is there a need for multifamily housing here, and can Arlington readily absorb the additional units? And the answer is a resounding yes. So JPI went out and hired Zonda. They're a well-known and respected company in housing analytics to prepare a supply and demand analysis in Arlington, specifically around multifamily, but they did look at the whole entire scheme in terms of for sale housing and things of that nature. So just in the sub-Arlington sub-market, the multifamily has maintained performance levels of above 94% occupancy, which is extremely healthy. Even in 2003, when occupancy for 3-bedroom plans fell below the average occupancy of other floor plans, and this is why JPI's unit distribution reflects that. They only have 17 3-bedroom units. It's mostly focused on 1 and 2 bedrooms for that working professional. One of the big things too is Arlington, it has never accounted for more than 14.6 of the metro absorption in terms of multifamily absorption, and that mainly is due from lack of new supply. It's not that there's not capacity, it's because there's not anything new that folks want to live in coming into Arlington. And that's important because large corporations are looking for high-end housing as a part of their location selection services. Much of the new high-end multifamily growth has been in North Arlington. If you look at the streetlights in Viridian and the Arlington Commons along the Lamar and Collins corridor. Arlington is expected to absorb on average more units than it's completed in its forecast. This includes all the projects in the rental pipeline that have been approved, such as the Enclave at the Highlands, the Grove at La Frontera, which is scheduled for 2025, the Reagan, which is that 3rd Arlington Commons project, and Streetlights 3 in Viridian in 2026. And it also includes the Anthem in 2027, which is up there around Lincoln Square. Once again, very North Arlington, not necessarily in this immediate area where all of the jobs are beginning to develop. And I keep clicking things I'm not supposed to, sorry. So considering that positive absorption, Zonda considers the apartment market to have adequate demand for new developments in Arlington. So I understand that you get the data of what you have approved and what is coming, but I think there's a missing piece of actually what can Arlington absorb and what is really truly needed. On this site too, to further kind of my point about this excellent location for multifamily, this is a really prime example of that Euclidean zoning principle in which, you know, on the south side of 20 can reflect the development to the north side. So you have that commercial aspect along Interstate 20. Behind that, you have the planned development, RMF 22, and then you have the single-family residential. It does not make sense to hold this site hostage for airport uses when there is no direct access to the airport from this site. There will be a connection along MLK that is specifically for eSpace, but it's just for eSpace. It's not for anybody else. And I think that's important to recognize that they're going to have to go all the way around to the other side to Barton to actually access the airport services. So, you know, we've also, you know, one of the things was we produced a sound study. It concluded that the proposed projects meets HUD acoustical requirements utilizing normal construction techniques. I know there was some mention of some airplanes that during the work session and their decibel sounds. I think it's important to recognize that a lot of those planes are not actually allowed to land at Arlington Municipal Airport because they exceed the weight requirements of what's available on the tarmac. I like to show this side because we really talk also about form-based code. This shows how the buildings are naturally incorporated into its surrounding area and how it would look once it's completed from an aerial view. But lastly, I think it's really important. Multifamily still only accounts for less than 5% of Arlington's land use. I often hear the argument, we can wait for a use of XYZ to come along because cities are afraid of giving up their land value. I want to show you on this chart what some of the surrounding uses in terms of commercial, office, and light industrial provide in terms of taxable value. And then I want you to notice the projected value of approving Jefferson Stevens. It's almost 4 times the value. You're not giving up anything in terms of value and revenue to the city of Arlington by changing the zoning from commercial to residential in this case. I also kind of want to point out that any multifamily that's going to be approved at this point in the city of Arlington is going to have to come in from a zoning change. For example, there are very, very few sites that are still left multifamily that are undeveloped, and there's a reason why they're undeveloped. It's because financially, they can't make the math work, and so they will remain undeveloped. You have a site along Tree Point. That's a great example of that. JPI looked at that site. They cannot make the math work in terms of actually developing it. So any multifamily at this point is going to have to come from a zoning use change. Once again, the site is long, it's rectangular, it lacks visibility from major vehicle thoroughfares, and so I understand that it's hard to change a commercial property to residential so close to the airport. I get it. However, the marketability standpoint and the competition of other locations along Interstate 20 with more direct access to the airport and entrances on Collins and Barton, this site is inferior. In fact, that other group on the other side that has it under control, and they just changed the zoning to light industrial, they do not have a tenant. They came in here, they got the zoning for light industrial, they may or may not build the building, but there is no guarantee, they have no user of what is coming into that. And so I think it makes sense to also provide housing in an area where you've got job growth. Happy to answer questions.
Questions from the commissioners at this time? Commissioner Payne?
Yes.
I just want to say, I think this is a very high-quality product. I struggle with the fact that we're giving up our commercial land use, and I just don't think that it's the best use of that land because I worry about the 1,300 units that are within 5 miles from that. And I worry about the fact that the Mark is open, it's just right down the street, and it's only 60% full. So those are the concerns that get me, and it's also I know you did the noise study, but I live close to that area, and I can tell you, I hear every single plane that goes off there. So I can only imagine living that close to there.
Yeah.
So for that, those are concerns for me that I see with this product. I mean, it's a beautiful product. I just don't know if it's the right location for me.
And I understand that, in terms of decibel, it's not that you're not going to hear the airplane noise. When I lived in Viridian, I had to sign a waiver before I bought my home that said, hey, do you know you're within airport traffic? Yes. And then you're across the street from a dump? Yes, I do. So it's not to eliminate the noise. It becomes the background noise of your life. Is it unhealthy? Is it distracting from your daily life? The answer is no. That's what the noise study is really there to prove in terms of that. And then also, I understand it's commercial, right? You don't want to lose it. But there is a reason why it has still remained undeveloped since literally God put it there. And you have an opportunity to bring value. JPI has had this piece of this parcel under contract for at least 18 months at this point. The owner has continued to extend that contract as we have walked it through this zoning process because they don't have any other offers. And so, I understand, but also too, looking at the values of the surrounding, Canales Furniture, now Galaxy Workspace that are in that area, anything that you bring into this area is still not going to present the city of Arlington with the same taxable value as this project is going to. We talked about impact fees tonight in your earlier session. This project alone will generate $1.5 million in impact fees. That's real money that's going back toward that roadway infrastructure in that surrounding area for the water and the sewer and the things that y'all are talking about. And so I understand that this is a land use question and it seems hard, but kind of zooming out and looking at it from different angles, I think that there is a lot of value to consider in incorporating some high-end residential into this area. But I appreciate your points.
Other questions? Commissioner Finley.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things. I'm really, as a previous apartment complex manager myself, I can tell you 94% occupied is not something that you shoot for. You just don't. And when I drive around Arlington and I see signs outside that says, we're running a special, that also means you've got occupancy issues. You don't run specials if you're really full. You don't. So with that being said, plus the noise factor, I live quite a ways from the airport, not as close as this would be, and I hear airplane traffic. And I understand that. I grew up in the Air Force, and you're going to hear that, and you're right. It does become part of your life. But a product of this quality, I think you can do better than this piece of land. I really do. I like the product. I love all the changes that you've made. I'm not crazy about the cementitious fiberboard, period. I think that Mansfield and Grand Prairie are doing a really good job as far as using brick and stone, and the cementitious fiberboard just doesn't cut it for me. With that being said, we are trying very hard to get apartment complexes either restored, renovated, using the land that they're already on. And if we can't do that, to get them demoed and rebuilt. I hate to use vacant land and rezone it from this to multifamily when we should be focused more on those other areas that we're trying to revitalize. So for me, I'm out on this one.
Questions? Sure, Commissioner Maddox.
Sure. One of the questions that I asked in the work session was about your density. It's certainly above what is recommended for that zoning. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of components that go into that, right? So you do have a very small site in terms of acreage. It's long and narrow. It's only 9 acres, so that limits what you can do. But also to build to this type of quality, you have to have density into that financial equation, right? So the more units you have, the more revenue generating asset you're able to build, so the more higher quality. So when you start talking about a tuck under garage with elevator and air conditioned corridor, that's a different level. And so you need the additional density above a 22 dwelling units per acre in order to finance that higher quality type of development. And so that's really what it comes down to. And I would tell you, here in Arlington, I don't know when the last time, and maybe the staff can answer, of when you've actually, approved a multifamily at 22 dwelling units per acre. I feel like everything kind of comes in with a PD because you need more density at this moment to make the math work in terms of construction quality and the expectation of what City of Arlington wants to see. The masonry, the air-conditioned corridors, something higher end than just a typical 2-3-story garden walk-up apartment.
Any other questions? Commissioner Blake?
Button here. There we go. It's been a long day. So assuming we were to go forward with this, would you be willing to change out some of the masonite structure to give it a little bit more brick and things like that? That's first part of my question.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I feel like we did that. We increased the brick. We also added the stucco component, which is an approved building material in the City of Arlington's UDC. The cementitious fiberboard is there because, A, it's a Class 1 ISO rated building material. It has the same fire rating as a brick does. So I think it's important to point that out, and it has the same longevity as a masonry brick does as well. But also with cementitious fiberboard, you have the ability to change the direction on it. You have the ability to change colors, and so it adds variety to the facade. And so, continuing to add more brick and stucco is definitely a business decision. They're giving me the nod yes, so yes. But that is the purpose behind the cementitious fiberboard, is to provide visual interest, and deliver a less monotonous product.
The second thing is more of a statement, and I'm not a big fan of apartment complexes in general, but seeing something come in that is of higher quality in an area that Arlington's trying to expand, and we see jobs coming in there, I think it's very important that we really look at having some higher density housing in this area. So I'll tell you, I'm for it.
Yeah, yes, sir. And I mean, also too, I think it's good to point out, you rarely have an opportunity to approve multifamily that doesn't have neighborhood resistance. And you have that here. You have letters of support from the surrounding businesses, and you do not have any letters of opposition from residents and citizens. And rarely do y'all have an opportunity to approve something without making someone else mad.
Well, thanks for a riveting and detailed presentation. The folks that hired you should be very proud of what you've done. When we met, when we talked about this, I told you I like this project. I like it a lot. I would like it somewhere else than here, though, unfortunately. I just can't get past giving up this commercial piece of property where it is located. It's to me, much more valuable for that, even if it brings in a little less tax dollars. I think it's going to cause more in the general area. I just can't get past that. I want my commercial businesses to come in there and to be able to support other businesses in the area. To me, the East Base deal is phenomenal. And it's going to be, should it totally come through as they expect it to, another GM for Arlington. And I want them to be able to get commercial businesses in our area to supply them. And I think we need that land to be developed in that vein. I wish I could go for this. I'd loved what Commissioner Finley said about us in Arlington wanting to replace apartments that have problems.
Yeah, and we all want that, yeah.
So, if this passes or if it doesn't, I would really appreciate a company of this value that produces product like this to come in and look for other places here in Arlington that it'll work. I really like to see it, but tonight I can't do it.
Any other questions at this time? Commissioner Sumter?
It's actually a question for staff first. Clifford? Yeah, you may not know the answer to this, and then I have a few, statements. How long has this property been zoned general commercial? When was it zoned general commercial? Because I'm assuming it changed at some point.
That I cannot say 100% when, but I would say probably we updated the UDC, I think 2014. I think it probably just incorporated that zoning, whatever it was, the equivalent to whatever that was when we made the updates with the land use and zoning changes.
So would you say, Jency had something to say?
So maybe, yeah.
I think it was in 2008 or 2009 when we changed B, business zoning district, to general commercial. That's when the changes happened.
And was B complementary to general commercial? Does this kind of allow the same uses?
It does. Most of the B uses are carried forward in
And
the
prior to that, it'd been B for how long, do you think?
B for a long time.
Long
I
time.
think from 1995 onwards, it would have been B. But the big change that has happened now is MLK Junior Drive that is being extended. That's given the site more prominence for any type of other users to come in. Till that time, that site did not have much access, so that was the biggest issue. But with MLK Junior Drive being expanded, brings a lot more opportunity for this site.
But MLK Drive doesn't have direct access to the interstate, correct?
It goes across,
It's an
yes,
overpass,
correct,
right? Okay.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it goes to the airport too, yeah, that's it.
Some other statements is, I hear this a lot of, let's wait for the most appropriate use. How long do we wait for a commercial use to go at this location? Yes, I agree that MLK Drive has been extended, and it's going to certainly enhance that area connection from the north side of 20 all the way to Green Oaks. Totally get that. But it's an overpass, so we don't have that direct access that, again, I've probably made the argument at that podium before. Commercial wants visibility. They want traffic. You're not going to get that because you don't have direct access to I-20. You may not agree with me, but it's a fact because it hasn't been developed and it's been zoned for 30, 40 years. So that's the first statement I want to make. Noise, I don't know if anybody read the noise study. The statements from, I can't remember the gentleman's name, of responding to the airport's opposition letter. I think those are very valid points. We live in an urban area. Noise is a backdrop in our daily life. I live on the west side of Arlington, next to I-20, 287. I hear traffic daily. It's just a part of where we live. JPI is a big developer. They chose this site for a reason. They want to be here in Arlington. I agree with Commissioner Finley. I want the old multifamily torn down. Unfortunately, all of that's in North Arlington. Majority of it is. There's some stuff on Cooper Street. I agree with that. But truly, will people live in North Arlington and work in South Arlington? If they had an opportunity to live close by, I think I would choose that, right? I don't go to North Arlington very much myself. I stay in this corridor. That's where I go. Park Small, Arlington Highlands, that's where I want to be. But I do agree, old multifamily should come down, but if we're talking about best land use, I feel like a residential use at this location makes sense, especially when we have this plan to enhance the airport, create those jobs that we want. We want those people to live here in Arlington. The masonry materials, I mean, if they're willing to add more brick, again, and Dr. Nunez has made this comment several times of we need to be picky. Well, we need to be picky and have a nice quality development here in Arlington. The density question, I mean, unfortunately, we have one zoning category for multifamily, 22 units an acre. I would rather see higher density products if it gets that Class A quality multifamily development that we're seeking, like the Arlington Commons, like the other ones that like the Mark. The Mark it's a wonderful development. I wish it would have picked different colors. Too much brown in my opinion, but it's a wonderful development. A lot of public, fountains, streetscape. So that's what these guys are trying to do and bring to the south side of I-20. And then the statement, this is a wonderful development, but I would rather see it somewhere else. If you have somebody in front of you that wants to develop a $40 million project that will support the existing development that's around you, then plus the planned stuff, why not support them? Don't we want to be a community that supports developers that want to bring quality development to our city? And I'll end it with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions of the applicant at this time? Okay, go right ahead, Commissioner Payne.
I just want to say, I totally respect what you're saying, Mr. Sumner. Again, my only problem is, I know we're saying that people want to live in that area, but we still have a lot of occupancy that people aren't living in that area. That's just my only problem with it. It is a great product. We are lucky that they are coming to us. I don't think any of us would deny that. But it's just the fact that in that area, we already have so much occupancy right now. So it makes me think, what are we doing putting more stuff in there when we can't fill the occupancy that we have? And the Mark is a beautiful product. It's right over there by the Highlands, and I think, again, we were going back to that, it's 60%. So if we have something, that unique and that's over there at 60%, it just really, really gets me to put more multifamily in there.
I'm going to make a short question/statement. I've got more to say later, but Jency, I know that you gave us anecdotal information that you went on a tour and you were told that at the Mark that the present occupancy of a building that's only been open for what, about 6 months now? 1 year, okay. And so it's at 65%. But do you know what the occupancy of the other apartments are that are within the 5 mile occupancy? And do you, the applicant, have that information? Would you tell us what that occupancy is of the apartments that are within the 5 mile radius that are being discussed?
Yes, because where the Mark is actually very healthy for where they were at and the rate in which they are leasing up. And so, okay, you can speak to
Please
yeah.
give us your name and your city of residence,
First one,
please.
for one number. Brian Grant, Irving, Texas. 92% is, and that's kind of just Class A, all of Arlington in general, the occupancy.
Well, let me repeat my question. Do you know what the occupancy of the apartment buildings are within a 5 mile radius of this site?
Not not those only properties, no, sir.
So you're saying that all of Arlington, the occupancy rate is 94%?
Correct.
And that data is as of when?
About an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
That's interesting, okay? And that's why it always, what I said upstairs about going into a discussion with not having all the information, remember that comment I made? And I still tend to believe that, but anecdotal information, I went on a tour with respect, and the Mark's at 65%, I believe it, but does that apply to everything? And I don't know that it does. So, okay, I'll stop there. Commissioner Blake.
So really a clarifying question. You kind of mentioned the feasibility study and you threw out a whole bunch of numbers that I didn't bother writing down. But A, what were those numbers again, and how quickly do you think that that's going to lease up? Because I don't think that you're going to spend $40 million to have 10% occupancy rate.
Yeah.
So clearly you've done due diligence. And who is it that did the due diligence, and what are their credentials?
the numbers on just the lease up rate? Is that what you're
Just
asking?
the reason why you're putting this property and you think
Sure.
it's gonna be a success.
Sure. So we built one in North Arlington. It's called Jefferson North Collins. There was an apartment complex that burned down years ago and was vacant for a while. We built one there. That one we still own today. It's 93% occupied. And to speak to the mark, it does take time to lease up. So we usually pro forma about 20 to 25 leases a month. And so that would put them, I think they've been open for a year, but they haven't had move-ins except for like the last 7 or 8 months. So it does take time. I think they're averaging about 21 and a half move-ins per month, which is standard in the industry. So it does take time for people to move in. It's actually a lot of move-ins per month. So we see that. We see the comps. I'm not sure about the radius question, but the 6 comps that we have closest to us are 91% occupied. That includes the mark, which brings that average down a little bit because it's in lease up. But we just see the demand here. That's why we're coming here. Correct. We're not investing $40 million without spending a lot of money on studies to kind of confirm that up. And we've seen that in our other properties within the area. We have some in Grand Prairie as well. But we see that strong lease of demand. It is 20 to 25 a month.
Thank you.
Sir.
And we're still in the middle of the public session, so any other questions of the applicant at this time? Yes.
Talking about the Jefferson Collins, you said it's at 92%. How long did it take to get to that point?
That one's 368 units, and it averaged about 18 leases per month. So whatever that math is. Hold, I'm gonna cheat.
Please do.
I'm a Aggie, so I need lots of help. That was 20 leases a month. So, no, sorry, what did I do? I already choose wrong again. 368 divided by 18. Yeah, a little under 2 years, year and a half.
So that's usually what the average is to get it up to a percentage?
To get it up to 94%, that's what we shoot for. I know, I think you said 94 was not what we shoot for. That is what we shoot for. You don't want to you never want to be 100 in our industry. That you're doing a bad job because you're not leasing it for enough money. And so we always shoot for that 90 to 95 range. And that's 360 units, so we think this one would be quicker because it's 331 units, I believe.
I just really wish you had the numbers for the multifamily that's already across the street on the percentage.
Mark? Or which
No,
one?
the one that's right there by, you guys are, there, it shows multifamily.
To the
right there.
south?
Yeah.
Oh,
To the
that's
south right
1980s
there.
garden.
Oh, yeah, we don't have.
It's not Class A's, we weren't looking at it.
Commissioner Payne, can you pull the microphone closer to you
Oh,
so that they can pick
sorry.
up the audio?
Sorry. Yeah, so when we're looking for comps too in the area to justify rent and development of this type of caliber, you're really gonna go compare apples to apples. So you're looking for that Class A, you're looking for the elevator, air-conditioned corridor, wrap garages, those types of things. So the multifamily that's directly to the south of us, I believe, was, it's at least well over 20 years old. I think it was even developed in like the 1980s, and then there was another portion that was developed in like maybe the early 2000s. And so that is your traditional 2-3-story exterior parked, where you kind of walk up to your unit utilizing an exposed stairwell. And so we would not necessarily bring that in as a comparable study. We consider that more of a Class B product. But with that, when you really want to start talking about redevelopment, and this is how it is in multifamily, because it's really, really difficult to take a revenue-generating asset and demolish it and redevelop it. Even if it's like run down, whatever, it is generating mailbox money for somebody, and they're not going to sell for nothing. But what you can do is when you generate and you bring in really, really nice multifamily projects like that, it forces those other projects, like the one just south of us, to continue to increase their standards for renovating, changing out their finishes and things of that nature, because they want to compete in the rental market. And so by approving new and better projects, you actually end up raising up the whole area, because they try to compete now for the same rental market in that area. And so in a way, you are continuing to spur redevelopment in that area. And I don't want to speak for her out of turn, but one of the comments that Councilmember Boxall made was that commercial that's right there along I-20, it was developed in the 1980s too. So it's as old as I am. It's almost 40 years old. Go back to the site plan, kind of in that area. There's a lot of vacancy in that area. It is ripe for redevelopment as well. And I think what she was hoping was that if you bring a little bit more of a mixed-use component to this area in terms of having jobs, the airport, high-end residential housing, that you'll actually spur redevelopment and a turnover of those tenants in the existing commercial that has the visibility to 20, that has more marketability and up there and whatnot. You've got your Mercedes-Benz dealership right there. And so I think all of these components, it's having to like bet on that future a little bit, right? It's having to kind of peer around the corner to look at that outlier and see what is actually going to get you on that flywheel toward redevelopment in this area.
We have an analyst watching online. He said 305 Ranch, which is just to our south, is 96% occupied.
Any other comments? So do we have any, if there are no other questions of the applicant at this time, are there any speakers in opposition? No. Okay. Any other questions? Because there's going to be time for comments again after I close the public session. I just want to make sure are there any other speakers here in favor or against that would like to speak? Sir, come on down, tell us your name, and when you finish, if you will please fill out a blue card with your name and information on it.
Hello, my name is Brian Perry. I'm a resident at 700 Wayland. I'm also an architect, and I work at Perkins & Will in Dallas, and I'm on the board for the Arlington Life Shelter. So this looks like a fantastic project. 40 million is a lot of money, and our tax base is really needing that. So I'd love to see you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't forget to fill out a card, sir. Any other speakers? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public session at this time. This is an opportunity for us to make comments. We've already heard quite a few. Are any other commissioners have any comments or anything they want to say? Mr. Carter.
Thank you. I'd like to remind all the commissioners that this is in the airport overlay, and it was created by staff. They worked very hard to get these overlay districts created, and I think it's a new district, and I feel like in the very near future there's going to be something really great on the horizon for this property that will be airport related.
Any other comments? Well, I'm going to close with my thoughts. I know that many of you remember my thoughts upstairs. I was torn last time this came forward, but having heard everything and everyone's comments, here are my thoughts. I drive up Lincoln Boulevard from Lamar a lot. I want you to think about that for a second. That's right through the heart of all those apartments. And ever since all those new apartments have gone up, and believe me, I have friends that used to live in those apartments that were torn down. I've been here since 1971. But I can remember driving through some of those apartments up there. One of my sons used to live up there back in the 90s. In the 90s, early 2000s. Oh my God, they were terrible. And everyone in Arlington who was in leadership retrospectively looked over their shoulders at all the multifamily that they allowed to be built at that time and regretted it. However, with all the multifamily, the high-end Class A luxury apartments that have gone up along the Mar, when you drive north now, those apartments all of a sudden are painted and they're clean and they pick up their trash and they've upped their game. So I'm going to fall on the side of voting to approve this project for the following reasons. Number one, I think it will be a catalyst to improve the surrounding area. Two, as we talked about upstairs, high-end employers who are going to bring 6,000 jobs to Arlington need high-end apartments for their employees, their highly paid employees, to live. When we graduate from UTA, all of our bachelor's and master's and PhDs in business, we have a fine business school, in engineering and science, they want to live in Arlington and keep their families here, start their families here, run a business here, be an entrepreneur here, or work for a high-end employer, and they can afford to live in a Class A apartment and all they have are Class B and C. I'm going to live in Dallas, or I'm going to live in Fort Worth, or I'm going to live someplace else other than a Class B apartment, because I can afford to pay for more if I'm a highly paid young employee fresh out of college. I think this area needs these apartments. I'm saying this because I can tell, it's one of the reasons I asked the questions that I asked upstairs. Why did City Council send this back to us? This is only the second time ever that a project's been sent back to Planning and Zoning for us to reconsider, because they were torn too, trying to figure out whether it's the right thing to allow a high-end luxury apartment to be built or not. I know I'm not going to sway all of you, but I've made my decision. I'm going to vote in favor of this for all the reasons I just stated, because I think it's the right thing to do for the city of Arlington and for the city's taxpayers, because it's going to bring in a lot of money. And I really am impressed that this applicant, and in particular their hired gun, did a really spectacular job of doing everything that they needed to do to make their case. So with that, any other comments? Commissioner Ware, thank you. I knew you would, sir. I love you for it.
Like I said earlier, I feel strongly both ways about this. But I see those young engineers graduating from UTA that want to start their own businesses, and they need a place that is built recently that fits what they want. They need the kind of commercial flex kind of business that's going to go into this land, this area, that's going to feed the other large businesses. We've got kind of a double problem, but I remember back when I moved here in '78, prior to that and after that, Arlington had all those cool apartments up in the north that everybody lived at.
Yep.
They were the hot topic and the hot article at that time because they were built for 1970s and early 80s. Where are those people now? They're living elsewhere. So I want us to look really hard at this and put in here an area that entrepreneurs can come to. They will find a place to live here in Arlington. They will redo properties that need redoing right now. The areas that need the density will get more density. Everything, in my opinion, will be better if we draw the entrepreneurs' businesses in here and seek them to live here and get into properties they can afford initially and then grow them like so many others did, such as the owner of this piece of property, Mr. Doskasil. So I would love to see more Mr. Doskasils in Arlington, and that's where I stand on it.
Any other comments? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a motion to approve at this time by Commissioner Sumter. We have a second by Commissioner Blake. Let's find out. Let's cast our votes. Oh, please, yeah. Commissioner Sumter, please state your motion, and was there anything about extra brick?
Yes. So I move to approve PD 24-10 with the addition of one of the staff considerations to paint the cementitious fiberboard, if used, every 10 years.
Did you want to increase any percentage on the brick or masonry? Or you're comfortable?
I'm comfortable. I personally feel having 3 to 4 different material types gives variety.
Looks good.
If you limit it to less than that, it's not going to be as picky as we're looking for of something that looks high quality and different than what we've been seeing in the past.
All right, thank you very much. And Commissioner Blake, is that your second?
It is.
Cast your ballots.
It is.
Motion fails, 5-4. It'll be interesting to see what happens at City Council. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and I want to thank everyone for all of their thoughts and comments. This is what it's all about. All right. Okay. Next item on the agenda is zoning case PD 2337, addressed at 1600 East Pioneer Parkway. Application, at this time I'm going to call on staff to present its report on this particular case.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Principal Planner Kevin Charles, Planning and Development Services. This evening, we'll be hearing PD 23-37, also known as, is that correct, or is it HOSAC? Okay, PD 6, I thought it was. PD, also known as 1600 East Pioneer Parkway. Current zoning on the property is community commercial. The request is for PD for neighborhood mixed use uses with the development plan. As was mentioned in the work session, this is absolutely a case that has come before you in the past. It was continued back on August 21st in order to address some additional items that they listened to and heard from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I would like to just go down a few of those things during my presentation so that we can make sure we cover all of those items that they have been able to address. This is a aerial photograph of the site highlighted in yellow. As you can see, the property to the north is zoned RMF 22 and developed with multifamily. The property across Browning Drive to the east is commercial, and there's a commercial shopping center there. The properties to the south are neighborhood commercial, and it's developed with a restaurant, and the other is residential multifamily, and that property actually encompasses the southern property line and the western property line as well. These are photographs of the site as it is currently configured. The subject site was developed early in the 1980s as a banking center. The use of the site has remained consistent since its original construction. The surrounding area began developing in the 1970s with multifamily uses to the north and south. These uses, along with other commercial service type uses, established the area as a great location for a mixture of single and multifamily housing, commercial services, and office locations. Here you see the revised development plan. Since the continuance, the initial continuance on August 21st, the applicant has revised the development plan to include electric charging stations. One of the drive approaches that was open along the northern property line has been closed for better internal traffic circulation. There will be international corridor banners as I will go through this. The fencing is wrought iron with masonry columns. and the masonry on the facade has been updated. Additionally, the parking analysis has been provided in order to show that the site can support a reduction in the required parking. And that reduction in required parking also allowed for the implementation and redesign of the site to increase the size of the green space areas, the trail areas, the dog park, and other. Additionally, the site has proposed, like we mentioned before, they will be using the International Corridor banners, and in their presentation, what I think is really cool is they'll be scrolling through the different type of concepts and languages that they ideally see for their site as in the International Corridor. Along with that, they have added a lighting plan and enhanced lighting details. And they actually also added within the development plan a phasing plan to show you what will be done now and what will work in the future. Additional attention, as I mentioned before, has been given to the open space for future tenants, as seen by the incorporation of the sizable green space included in the southeastern portion of the site and the newly oriented trail system. We've already taken a look at this. We can continue to move forward. This detail is a detail of the wrought iron fencing with the masonry columns that the applicant is proposing. On to building design. As you can see by this elevation drawing, the masonry has been increased on all elevations, with brick now extending to all floors of the building, thus increasing the overall percentage of the brick on the building elevations to 60% on all elevations. This is to give you a more realistic view of the site, of the subject site, as it would be as developed. I would like to note, and I mentioned this in the work session, you don't see the trees along Pioneer on the night or daytime view. That's because you would not be able to see the potential improvements that they've made along the frontage with the overhangs, as well as outdoor seating areas that they are showing along those frontages. The design of the structure shall incorporate an office and retail type of look along the first floor, using glazing as well as brick overhangs, and like I said, the additional outdoor seating areas that they're proposing. The primary exterior material has been updated to reflect that it is brick on all 4 elevations, making it the primary material for the entire structure. As a deviation, and I mentioned this in the work session as well, we think, and by we I mean staff, we think that the use of the ornamental iron and masonry columns is actually a upgrade along that southern and eastern property line instead of going with the required wood fencing. And also, there is a deviation there because of the existing easements, water line, utility, underground easements that are in that area. They cannot plant the trees that would be required there. They have gone through, though, and lined the entire parking lot with shrubs along the entire southern and western property line. Went over that. As we mentioned before, deceleration lane along Browning Drive is required and must be shown on the site plan. However, if a revised TIA is submitted showing that one is not required, then they may move forward as presented. However, at this particular time, the TIA that has been reviewed states that there is a required turn lane or decel lane along Browning Drive. And it's shown, I believe, in the new site plan that's in the packet. Land use goals for the area are defined as mixed-use residential. The area is surrounded by entertainment, commercial, and industrial activity areas. Building on the New York Avenue strategy adopted in 2013. The area is envisioned to contain a mix of housing types, appropriate neighborhood and community convenience, retail services, and specialty stores, along with mixed-use retail, office, institutional, and civic uses. The property is also located in the International Corridor, east and west of New York along Pioneer Parkway, which includes a goal to improve walkability and lighting. This corridor, which has transitioned in recent years to an area predominantly of international businesses, is intended to celebrate the area's multicultural diversity, which is one of its greatest assets. And what I'm showing here is the updated lighting, is the updated lighting that I was speaking of earlier. The street lights in this area, again, they present an opportunity for a low-cost, dynamic, and visually appealing element unique to the International Corridor. Additionally, these lighting standards are the ones that are approved and recommended or required by the city, and they also have the breakaway arms for the vertical banners that would be required to be installed upon them already. Stylized wraps on existing or new street lights create a unique identity and reinforce the cultural diversity of the corridor. Street light wraps would also enhance the pedestrian environment by creating moments of color and whimsy. Any vertical banners and other signage shall be subject to the standards of UDC Article 7 and related UDC provisions. Again, I wanted to show the staff considerations as they have addressed 2 and 3. And again, they really did address 1. I just left it unstruck because they chose a different type of fencing. But again, after seeing what they're proposing and what they're attempting to do with the site, staff does not have a problem with the fencing that they're proposing at this time. We did receive an additional letter of support. No opposition letters or other inquiries were received by staff. The applicant is Permitted Development, represented by Audra Buckley, and the owners are KRE7 Epic LLC. Staff is available if there are any questions or comments in reference to this project.
Are there any questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Sumter?
Yes, sir.
If staff is agreeable that the iron and masonry combination is better, then wouldn't the
We should
staff?
strike it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we would strike it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions at this time? If not, thank you, Mr. Charles.
Thank you.
This time I'll open the public hearing and call for the first speaker. The applicant will go first. If the applicant will come forward and address, and please tell us your name and your city of residence.
Audra Buckley, Ennis, Texas.
All right, thank
See
you.
if I remember how to do this. You know, when we first started this process last year, we went to Miss Sue Phillips's group, and this project tanked immediately. And one of the things I like about this property owner, I've been doing this for a number of years, and a lot of times I'll get a stubborn property owner that'll draw their line in the sand, and they don't want to be very flexible with things. But from that very first community meeting, they have been exceedingly flexible. And after our last conversation where I got to get up here and doodle on the screen and listen to all of your feedback, once again, they were flexible because they want to build this in the International Corridor. So with that, and I think this project is really going to go a long ways to making the other property owners want to improve their properties, maybe a little redevelopment through the International Corridor, because there's some areas on Pioneer and Browning around this site that could use a little paint job here and there. So you've seen the phase 1, phase 2. I don't want to do anything that's very redundant. I know that you've seen everything that Kevin has gone through. He's gone through it twice now in a relatively short period of time. I did want to show that we did include the first floor plan. I sent this PowerPoint around to you guys. I don't know if you had a chance to open it, download it, and go through it. But we don't show anything fleshed out here because we don't have our LOIs at this point. The parking demand, if y'all have questions on that, that's the reason I included it in the PowerPoint, just in case you wanted me to come back to this, but I don't want to belabor it at this particular moment in time. Here is our landscape plan. Now, in the briefing, I heard the question was raised, does the trail connect anything? And yes, We do have to have sidewalks on Browning, and we also have to have sidewalks on Pioneer. As a matter of fact, the ones on Pioneer have been redone relatively recently by the city, and then the changes that we'll have to make on Browning, we will have to have a decel lane at some point. We tried to twist the arm of our traffic engineer to say that we didn't have to do that, and he said, no, you absolutely do. So, the way we have it now, yes, we will have to have the decel lane, but we will have a sidewalk that will run across Browning, and then that's where that trail will pick up. So that's why the trail kind of leads out just a little bit past the property line there. Let me skip through. So on the international corridor, we took a little different approach. Instead of just, if you look at the guidelines, it's just basically a pattern background with the word welcome in different languages. We took it a little step further because sometimes you have areas where you have one language that is spoken among multiple countries, okay? So this one was pretty easy. This one was Italy, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria. I'll give you bonus points if you know where that one is. It's Germany. Tanzania. This is the UK. This is Stonehenge. Then we've got Egypt. We have Japan. And then we have India, because that is the ethnic origin of the property owners. So we wanted to do something a little bit different along this line, just to be a little more educational. Of course, the city is allowed to say, no, we don't like those. We think they're too colorful, or we just, we don't want those up. So it's negotiable, but that was kind of the mentality we took when we came across how to design these. And this is kind of what they would look like on those street lights. I did this. I'm not an artist, but I tried to give you a good idea of what they would look like. And then as Kevin said, we did take the trees out so you could actually see the building. You can see that we have patios there, have one down here, and one down here. And of course, we can always put them in the middle if we need to. Ooh. Here is the bank side where you can see the EV spaces here. You can see we had some shrubs here. We just didn't want to put a whole lot of trees right here and commit to those in this little green space next to the EVs, because we have to see how all of our utilities are going to run. If we can squeeze in more trees right there, we absolutely will, because that would be fantastic to have a couple of trees there in the middle of that green space. And here's the rear. We got rid of those parking structures as requested, and then we provided the covered parking up close to the building. The covered parking will be for residences only. And here you can see it from an aerial perspective. This is looking at it from the bank side. Someone asked the last time if we were going to have a mail room or place for packages. Yes, we will. This is also showing you the type of access that we will have. This one over here on the left, we're going to use that for the elevators. Those will be used for the keypads outside the building as well. And then, of course, we will also have even more security at the units themselves with these here. And, we had and the chair asked me at the last meeting, I don't know if it was a carryover or if it was a typo, but we had a water feature called out in the dog park area, and we took that off and actually created a dog park area with a trail and some trees. The only water feature that we're looking at adding is this one, and this will go up there in that little area where the EVs will be, in that little green space there. And to me, this is a far better option for water, because you get to take care of the dog, take care of the children, people in wheelchairs, and people who are just coming by running and just want to fill up a water bottle. Has more utilitarian use. For our interiors, you'd asked me about this. I had seen these pictures, but I did not include them in the presentation last time. I believe it was Commissioner Payne that asked me about these. So these are some of the interiors that we've used in the past or the project manager has used in the past. And that is it for my presentation. Ready for any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Buckley. Commissioners, any questions at this time? Commissioner Finley.
Thank you. Do you have an anticipated start date for Phase 2?
Not yet. That still has 9+ months, 9 years and several months left on the lease.
Okay.
So it's just going to depend on the tenants that are in there now
So.
and when they vacate.
All right, so you're basically saying it's gonna be 9+ years before,
It could be 9 years, yes.
that's a little disappointing to me because, you're gonna have this bright, shiny, new building, and then you're still gonna have the Chase building that
Look,
looks.
Chase Bank is going to get a facelift. I mean, it's going to be painted. We're going to be redoing the parking lot. It's going to have some new landscaping and things like that. We can't let it sit over there looking exactly like it looks
Okay.
now.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was my main concern.
Yes.
Okay, but that's not part of Phase 2, that's just a facelift.
That's a facelift for now,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Commissioner Payne.
I think last time we had, first I want to say thank you for bringing this back and doing everything you did to bring a project to this area. I think it really needs it. Last time we talked about trash, I think, and I don't know if you answered how we were going to handle that.
Did we talk about trash
I thought
last time?
so. I think we were trying to figure out what the trash situation was, but I could be wrong.
Not on this one. It's not in my notes. And I took copious amounts of notes. We did talk about a rooftop deck, and you brought that up in the briefing. But yeah, we looked at this, and you have to remember that, this is not Trammell Crow or Lincoln Properties. These are 5 guys, have been friends, and they want to do this right here. And they've been in conversations with general contractors already. They've got 3 or 4 that they're looking at, but the cost is ranging anywhere from $14 million to $20 million. So it's in that range. And to go in there and to re-engineer the roof, to have to put in the additional support, then there's the liability. Plus, there's also the utility of it. You're looking at extreme heat or cold. You've got like maybe 12 weeks out of the year that you can actually use the roof comfortably. I think the best bang for the buck, so to speak, and the most that will be utilized will be the patios out front. So I really like the trade-off there to leave the patios in the front, do something nice with the dog park, add the green space, that kind of thing, rather than spending the money on trying to reconfigure the roof.
Yeah, I think it looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Carter?
Have y'all, this is a kind of all rent is high in Dallas and Tarrant, but have y'all checked the rental comparable rates for the area? It's for Dallas and Tarrant, it's a really low rent area, and the area does provide a lot of needed housing for people that maybe don't have a driver's license or people that have just arrived in Texas. And I feel like this building will raise the rent comparables for everybody in the area. Plus, I'm not sure if someone that's willing to pay the rent for this new of a property, for this comparable of a property, would they be willing to go to this area surrounded by an area that's about to go through a lot of positive changes? Have y'all met with the International Corridor people? I know they're newly appointed and they haven't even had their first meeting yet, but have
Right.
y'all got any direction from them on?
We have not met with them yet, but we will.
It's a very big project that's gonna happen to the whole, from Center Street to past 360. And I feel like it would be a really good thing to meet with them to see what direction they're gonna go. They're gonna be in charge of the TERS money. They're gonna be, steering the whole deal. And so what we're gonna have is a new apartment building right next to a 45-year-old Chase Bank building that needs, a lot of work.
Yes.
And so I don't know if it's the right project for the area.
Well, we went to a meeting, it was an economic development meeting. I believe it was something that our council member and Councilmember Hunter had put on. And they were talking to us about economic development money and things to spruce up the property if we needed it for infrastructure, things of that nature. And then they said, once we got, past this point, we're gonna go in, have a meeting, see what's available, see what we can use, what's there that we can use for the infrastructure, because the infrastructure, we're gonna have the streetlights, the sidewalks being redone, that kind of thing, maybe some utilities that have to be relocated or whatever the case may be. But she wants to have an in-depth conversation once we get past this point.
Well, and I think that TERS money will only be for stuff that can be viewed from the street, not really anything on the inside of a building,
Right.
but just stuff
Yeah.
that can be seen from the street.
Mhm.
So, so I feel like this project, building the new building next to something that they've owned for about 3 to 4 years now, that they haven't even touched it. Y'all weren't aware the last time that the drive-through at Chase Bank had closed, and it is still closed. There's 2 ATM machines open, 2 ATM drive-throughs open, but the bank is, the whole area needs a lot of work, but I'm not sure I feel like that the International Corridor Committee that just got appointed a few weeks ago, I think they're gonna be the right ones to ask, what would be the ideal thing for the rental comparable rates would be something I'd be very concerned about over there. And I don't want affordable housing for people that don't have IDs or people that have just arrived here to get priced out of that market over there. That would take about 10 years' time, but still, it would happen.
Any other comments or questions of the applicant? Commissioner Maddox.
So kind of dovetailing on what Commissioner Carter is saying, you guys have done a rent analysis of the area. What does it say?
You have it? No. We have it, but he doesn't have it with him.
But is it safe to assume that because you want to go forward with this project, that the rent analysis says that it's feasible?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I mean, he wouldn't have chosen this type of structure here if it wasn't gonna be profitable in time.
Because if I understand what Commissioner Carter is getting at, is that the rent availability, stop me if I'm wrong, the rent that will be paid in that area may not support a project of this magnitude?
Well, we're the first one,
Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
but we're the first one.
I understand, and that's why I
Things
asked
will
the previous question.
Yes, things will
was,
dovetail as it goes.
Does your analysis say that this is a go? And what I'm
Yes.
hearing from you is, yes, it is.
Any other comments or questions of the applicant? Mr. Carter?
I can tell you that there's some other rent comparables around there that have some brand-new properties, and the whole area with even the Class B apartments, they're about 93% or worse. They're sometimes in the 90s, but about 93 is the average vacancy rate.
I'm sorry,
There's
did you say 90%
93
vacant?
93% occupancy rate. Yeah, sorry, I meant to say.
I heard you say vacancy, and I went, whoa.
Yeah, 7% vacancy.
Okay.
There's a new complex very near there they've been marketing them for more than 6 months, and they've rented 5 units. And that's it. The address is on Mary Street.
Okay.
And they're probably a better quality than what y'all are gonna build, because these are really a fine property over there on Mary. And they've rented 5 of them in more than 6 months. We have the 5-year outlook on apartments right now is very bleak. And so you're building a big, fine, beautiful building in an area of low-rent apartments, and those low-rent apartments are very good for that strip there between Collins and 360, because it's providing homes for people that can't go qualify at your place, or they can't qualify at Kestrel and Cooper, they can't qualify for any of these new places, so it's providing a good home for them, because they just don't qualify for anything. So we don't want gentrification to happen over there. That's the whole idea of the corridors. They're not doing this for gentrification. They're doing it to improve and clean up the area and make it a safer place.
Mr. Carter, can I ask a question? I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you saying we shouldn't build anything new along the international corridor?
I think we should wait for the International Corridor Committee to give some guidance. And I don't think it's the best solution, the best possible land use for the building, to put an apartment building, you know, just so close up to the road. Those front patios there will not be usable. The speed there, where those patios do work, they work on Abrams Street and they work on other places because the speed limit's a lot lower. This Pioneer Parkway, the speed limit's 45, but you know, they're really going 65 to 70. There's just some things that really could be, it's just not the appropriate spot for it.
Commissioner Sumter?
I think with the previous case, we've kind of forgot this is a mixed-use project. You know, the zoning that they're asking for is for neighborhood mixed use, not multifamily. So yes, it is challenging with the retail market, but he has a plan to have a non-residential use on the entire first floor, correct?
Mhm.
And yeah, it'd been wonderful if we could have met with the International Corridor Committee, but it wasn't in place when y'all started about a year ago. So they met with probably the best person to meet with, and that's Ms. Sue Phillips, which is sitting right behind you. And I'm sure she's given you a lot of feedback.
Absolutely.
And it's all in that plan that we've seen. We got to start somewhere. And I think they've done a wonderful job of updating their plan, listening to us, after listening to East Arlington Renewal. So I'm supportive of it. I hope all of y'all are, because I think East Arlington Renewal wants Pioneer Parkway to be improved and the International Corridor, and it's got to start somewhere. And I think a mixed-use project is wonderful, and not just a standalone multifamily. So that's my comments.
Let me just add one more piece of information. The TERS, or the Tax Incremental Reclamation Zone, is now been in place now for, I think, 2.5 to 3 years. It's already building money, and that stuff can be used for infrastructure, certainly not for construction, but for sewage, for water, for electricity. That's what that money is for. It's not going to be used on putting wiring in the building or anything like that. So I just want to make sure that all the commissioners were aware of that. The money's there, it's building up, and it's to be used by that international committee, which is going to be making decisions about who is going to be having access to those funds. They'll have to apply, and they may or may not get those funds. But they can't apply until the zoning is already in place. This step has to occur before they can apply for any tax incremental money from that tax zone. Commissioner Ware.
I want to say ditto to what Commissioner Sumter said on this. I think it's a great project for here. It solves my problem of taking commercial and turning it into residential by having commercial there. It's all on the first floor. I think it was great. Otherwise, that probably would just be a lot of first floor commercial should it get developed. So I love the idea here. When this came up first, I wanted it to be what I call a .2 project. You're starting out over there in an area that needs development. You went to the neighbors and the neighborhood organization. You listened to them. You made changes. You did what they felt was best for their area. That is the best way to handle this. What you came up with, I think, is a wonderful project. I can't wait to see it when it's finished, and can't wait to when some other developer wants to know what to do over there. I'm going to point to this project.
Thank you.
So that's where I'm on it. I think you've done your homework. I personally don't see any reason to wait on the International Corridor Committee. I think most of them are gonna love it, and it will give them a base to work around. So thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Payne?
I just like want to make one too. I agree with Commissioner Sumner and Commissioner Ware. I think that you guys have gone around, you took the right steps, you came back here, everything that we asked you to do, you went and did, and you've come back. And I think that by what you're doing in that part of the town, you're gonna encourage other people to, you know, fix up their fence or, you know, other things like that, because they're gonna be proud of that area. And I think it's a great product and it's a good start from that area, so thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Are there any other speakers in support of the project that would like to step forward at this time? First I have Mr. Rahil Kamzat. Right now you're marked as a non-speaker in support. Do you want to, have you changed your mind or you're okay? All right, thank you. I have Sue Phillips with a question, in support with a question mark on whether or not she wants to get up to speak. I do. All right.
My name is Sue Phillips, and I gratefully live at 415 Joyce, 76010, and I love my little house. It's tiny, and it requires a little or no vacuuming. Well, it does require vacuuming, but I don't have to do it all day long. First of all, I want to address some questions you all have about the International Corridor. I have been appointed to the TERS committee, which I can't wait to have some meetings on. And on the International Corridor Committee, council has just appointed, I got my letter yesterday that says I have been appointed to that committee. Each council member was to nominate 2 people, one of whom was supposed to be from, live near, on the corridor or close by. I did get my letter yesterday, but here's the part everybody needs to understand about that committee. The mayor and council has already signed off on a document they want implemented. We won't be there talking about new and improved. Council has given us direct direction. We have the document, you all are to make it happen. And in that document was a long process where we've already gone through all those public hearings, and you all came to some of them. And we came up with what we would like to see along the corridor. For instance, improved landscaping, trash receptacles, lighting, big deal. Everybody wants lighting because it will make things appear safer. Yesterday was my birthday, and dadgummit, there just keeps stacking up. And so I may need to be on that study to see what I can do to improve my appearance. Because my numbers said they're big. This area, and I get nervous when I hear you all talking about what we need is people to come in and redo those apartments. Have you and here's always my answer. Let me give you these cats' number, and you call them and ask them how much they want to sell that property for. I have yet to get a call back. Because those properties, even as unattractive as they are, and we don't like, I hate to say this, but we don't like old. I hope I'll be an exception. But They're expensive to buy and bulldoze. Get real. Get real. If you want people to go in and buy old properties and demolish them and rebuild them, send money. This international corridor is one of the greatest gems we have in Arlington. People came in there of international descent and chose us. We didn't choose them. I'm doing my best to be their advocate. We're not going to abuse and tell them we don't need them any longer. No, we have mom and pop restaurants. We have mom and pop commercial businesses. You know, an empty commercial building is ugly as a multifamily. So we need more people to come in there, add to what we have. People are going to want to live along there because we've developed a lifestyle of foodies. I'd be going to one every night along there. I can tell you they're fabulous restaurants. East Arlington Road was so excited when this group came along. I want an exception. May I have it?
Give you just a little bit more time.
I'm getting to it.
You can
Get
wind
to
it
the
up.
end. I ask you to approve this on faith that we will work hard to improve our appearance. This project will be, I believe, the spark plug to ignite new and improved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Are there any other speakers that want to say anything that haven't filled out a card? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public session, and this is where we have comments or motions. I'll just say I'm in favor of the project. I'm very glad that we sent it back and asked for continuance in the past. They've done everything we've asked them to do. I think it's going to be a gem. I agree with Commissioner Ware. I think it's the right project in the right location. I think it's the highest and best use of that land. I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Payne and a motion to second by Commissioner Ware. Commissioner Payne, would you state your motion, please?
Commissioner, will you turn on your microphone, please?
I motion to approve zoning case PD 23-37.
And Commissioner Ware, is that your second?
Excuse me. In the staff report, there's a number of items that are improved, a list of them. Do we need to ask that they are included in the motion, or do we assume they are included in the motion because they've already accepted them?
Staff is making their way to the microphone. Mr. Charles, please.
I would state that you can just go with the motion as it was said by Ms. Payne, because the applicant has already provided all of those items and has already agreed to all of that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the same thing about the, regarding the deceleration lane, that's
Yes,
kind
sir.
of up in the
That is-
air depending
no,
on
it's-
TI.
It's done now. Like
Okay,
she
so we
stated,
don't
they
need to-
couldn't.
we don't need
yeah,
to cover
they
that.
tried to go back, but they weren't able to get a revised TIA that said differently. So they are required to provide a decel line.
Okay, then that is my motion also.
Very good. Please cast your votes. Are we having a technical, oh, there we go. Motion passes 7-1 with one abstention. Nope, well, excuse me, that's what I saw here, that's been changed, 7-1. Motion passes. And to the applicant and to the neighborhood, thank you for your joint efforts to get this passed. I'm really excited for the city and for this section of Pioneer Parkway. Thank you. Next, zoning case ZA 24-8, addressed at 7005 Calendar Road. This is an application for a straight zoning change from residential single families to residential family 7.2. It's currently zoned residential estate. Mr. Charles, you're going to be presenting this case. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Golston.
Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Clifford Golston, Principal Planner, Planning and Development Services. Again, we have for you zoning case ZA 24-8, addressed at 7001, 7005, 7007, and 7011 Calendar Road. Currently zoned residential estate with a request to residential single family 7.2. This is a location map. It's just to the east of Calendar Road. And this is just a location map showing the existing lots, how they break down. Is you have 7001, 7005, and 7011 actually face Calendar Road, 7007 actually behind 7005. And these are site photos, just looking at all the sites that front on Calendar Road actually have single-family residential structures on those lots. Directly to the west, across from the lot, you have a single-family residential development. South of the lot, you have the Encore overhead transmission power lines. And north of the site, you have existing single-family residential as well. And this is just a proposed site layout that is included in your packet. Keep in mind, this is a straight zoning case, so the applicant is not bound to this layout. However, with it being a zoning case to RS 7.2, they will have to meet the minimum requirements for that zoning district for the lots, which is 7,200 square feet. And again, this is their proposed layout that they're not bound to, but it does adhere to those requirements for lot sizes if they were to go with this. And this is just the surrounding area. As you see, you have various zoning districts in the area. You have RS 7.2 to the east behind the site. Those are all roughly adhere to the 7,200 square foot lots. You have a PD to the west for RS 15, which was E estate uses at that time. But all the lots themselves are roughly the 10,000 square foot. Again, you have Twin Hills to the south, which they, for the most part, they meet the 7,200 square foot lot requirement. You're gonna have some buried as well, and then they have to the south is Running Ranch, just to the south. It's zoned RS 7.2, but it is a larger lot development with lots ranging, you have some 20,000, 30,000 square foot lots as well. And you should have received the email from us. We did get received some letters of opposition after we posted. As well, you should have received, as of tonight, I provided Commissioner Nunez. There were 2 additional letters. I believe one of those should have actually been included with the email that was sent. So that gives us 1 additional letter. And I do believe we had a citizen sign a card out front in support as well for that. So that's the information we have. Again, all of that, we received all of that after posting. The applicant is Hamilton Duffy, represented by Trevor Truss, with the owners being Greenway Group, represented by Isa Firuzbot. Staff is available for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners at this time? For the sake of being complete, I'm just going to read one of the 2 letters that you gave me, because the other one is in the email that we've received. The other letter of opposition is from a Mr. Andrew Jacobs, whose address is at on Kuykendall Drive, and his reason for opposition is too many houses in a small area. And Kuykendall Drive, as you can see, is up at the top of the map. I want to read that into the record. And now I've got some cards. So if there are no questions, I'm going to open up the public session. The first card I have is of the applicant, Trevor Truss. Mr. Truss, if you'd state your name and your city of residence.
My name is Trevor Truss, North Virgin Hills, Texas. Good evening, commissioners. As Mr. Golson stated, this is we're just going for a straight zoning case here to rezone from residential estate to RS 7.2. As you can see on our zoning exhibit here, we're surrounded by RS 7.2, so everything we're proposing is pretty much the same and compatible with what's existing around us. We included sort of a preliminary layout. What would be proposed would follow this. I'm not going to say exactly, but it would be very, very similar. All the lots would conform to the 7.2 district. Setbacks, everything would be as is in the UDC. The structures that would be built are, I know the minimum in the district is 1,500. I can guarantee you that's not going to be the case. They will be closer to the 3,000 range. 4 to 5 bedrooms, 3 to 4 bath, brick, stone, masonry exteriors. Really, and then this is kind of the layout showing the surrounding neighborhoods. Everything that would be proposed and built in this area would be very compatible, very similar to what is existing in the surrounding neighborhoods. And with that, that's pretty much all I have.
Thank
If
you,
anyone
Mr.
has any
Truss.
questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So at this time, were there any questions of the applicant? I don't see any questions at this time, Mr. Truss. Thank you for your presentation, and now we're going to, we have some speakers in opposition. You will have an opportunity to rebut at the end of the opposition.
Sure, thank you.
I have Karen Blake, who would like to speak in opposition. Ms. Blake, don't be afraid. We're very friendly. We're very nice up here, and take your time. There is a clock up there. You have 5 minutes. You can use all of it or less of it, but it's
Thank you.
your
Thank
time.
you.
Just
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Your name and your
My
city.
name is Karen Blake. I live on Kukendall, which is just north of that development there. In fact, my backyard backs up to it, and I've taken down my back fence, so I have a nice open land behind me with horses and wildlife, and I have cardinals and bluebirds that come and see me every morning. Needless to say, I'm not real happy about having houses right in my backyard. I think what I've sat here and observed tonight is that a lot of the presentations that you've listened to tonight have been involved millions and millions of dollars and you know, big projects and whatnot. And I would hope that maybe you would consider the little guy and how much this land means to us. I believe a lot of my neighbors are here tonight because a lot of us are concerned about losing our peace and quiet out there. The neighborhood, we've been there for 10 years, and Twin Hills was developed just to the south of us, and there's hundreds of houses in there. The road is constantly noisy now. I don't know what has happened to the water lines because our water pressure is terrible. And so I'm concerned about, you know, another 27, 26 houses going there, as well as the sewer. They've built a new elementary school up on Harris Road. I don't know if the school population can support that many additional families. I'm a former teacher, retired teacher, band director. So I don't know. I just think there's too many houses out there already. Too much has been developed. I don't think we want that density in that area over there. It'd be nice to keep it just residential and, you know, what we've got now, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Any questions? Thank you
Okay.
very much. Next, Amy Calabrese is a non-speaker who is in opposition. You've changed your mind? You'd like to say something? I would. Okay. Please come forward, state your name and the city only of your address.
My name's Amy Calabrese in Arlington, Texas.
Thank you.
My house as well backs directly up to the property that's in discussion as well. I live on Echo Lake Court. One of the things that drew us to this was the quieter community, and as well as we've lived there just under 9 years. And Twin Oaks, Twin Hills has been there, and we've seen the change in the neighborhood already. I don't believe that the neighborhood can take on the additional sewage, the water, the usage. Our school zone is already was rezoned already since Twin Hills has came in. So I don't know if the schools can support this as well with the additional homes as well for this. The quietness of the neighborhood after working a busy thing is one of the things I truly love about my neighborhood. For it, I will also say I'm not a fan of HOAs in this town, and that was another thing that brought us there, and having another HOA back up to my backyard is discouraging to me. So, I'm not a fan of this, as well as I'm not a fan that I learned about this only 5 days ago and had to take off work tonight to view my opinion and my things, because that's how important this is to me, that I took and moved my schedule to be here to say that I don't want this in my neighborhood. That's all I got.
Thank you, Amy, very much.
Thank you.
Andrew Jacobs has signed up to speak in opposition. Mr.
Thank
Jacobs.
you, Andrew Jacobs. I also live on, I pronounce it Kirkendall. Karen pronounces it Kukendall. I'm for development, but if you look at the plat directly across the street, they're 10,000 foot lots. This developer wants to do 7,000 with 27 homes. That's too much. Think about this room taking 10 by 10 boxes. And as I was sitting there, I was trying to get just the circumference of this room to do this math in my head. But it's like taking 10 by 10 boxes, and I said 10. I meant 60 10 by 10 boxes and stuffing them in this room. It's too much. It's way too much. I'm okay if the developer says, hey, let's do bigger lot sizes, bigger homes. You can get that type of home out there. You can definitely get a $600,000 home built in that area. Not these type of homes jammed up against each other. We just don't need that anymore. American Dream City, it's starting to, as far as traffic goes, it's starting to turn into a nightmare. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, very much. Signed up as a non-speaker in opposition, Kim Farabee. Just simply raise your hand. Do you want to speak? If you want to change your mind, please come on up.
Hi, thank you all for being here tonight. Kim Farabee, Arlington. I agree with Jacobs. Looking at how many lots they have around our neighborhood, if you look across the street, down the road, there's so much more property. This one, you're fitting in like itty bitty Legos in between this little 6-acre property. I don't agree with that. We do have the peace, the quiet. It all disappeared when Twin Hills, all those neighbors came through, but we're still dealing with it. The schools have rezoned since twice since Twin Hills have come. They just now, this year, rezoned, I think, for next year because there's already too many kids going to these schools. I think this many properties on this 6 acres is going to be too extreme, too many houses. Oh, I'm in opposition also.
Thank you. Any questions? Essa Feroz, you signed up as a non-speaker says here in support. Okay, and you'd like to remain a non-speaker, or would you like to say anything?
Can I speak on behalf?
Essa Feroz? Sure. You're a non-speaker. Do you want to say something, sir? Well, come forward and state your name, but I'm going to ask you when you get done, go over there and fill out a card.
Yes, thank you guys so much. This is my first city council meeting.
No, this is not city council.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, next up. Now you know how good we're doing.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I can tell.
No, you're fine. Don't worry. I'm not nervous.
Okay.
I'm actually very confident in this project. I grew up on Suffolk Drive down the road off of Callender. I've driven this road every single day as a kid to my father's manufacturing building off of Cooper and Harris. So I know that route from the day I was a kid. I went to Marymore, Bowles, Martin High School, UT Arlington, graduated architecture there, taught 4 years as a professor there as well. I've left this city and I came back to invest in this city. I'm grateful for neighbors that speak their voice because Arlington has changed. The neighborhood I grew up in has changed. And my sister, who used to live on Suffolk next to my parents, had to relocate because of that change. And what we're trying to do is what you guys have already done to Callender Road, which is stunning, beautiful new roads with curbs. Back then when I was a kid, it had no curbs. You just go off the curb. And the roundabouts, which is so European and classy, that are gardened. It's actually probably one of the most beautiful new developments Arlington has going for it. So as someone coming back to the city, our goal is to build 26 beautiful homes that will make Arlington proud. I've done it in Dallas, in Highland Park, in Preston Hollow, energy efficient spec homes that were designed and planned by someone who's studied and building construction and architecture. And I want to do it for Arlington now. Our goal is not to come in here. I wish Twin Hills was here because their name was announced a million times. But our goal is to just accent what was there, if not better. The standards will be better and the quality of the construction will be better. So hopefully the neighbors will be proud. We left that barrier piece of land. We had the opportunity to buy that piece of land behind Cook and Dole, but we opted not to. And I hope that creates a middle barrier between their issues of noise and privacy and views and our wanting to develop this missing puzzle piece for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Before you leave, is it my understanding then, are you actually the applicant or you're the owner of the land, or what's your?
I am the development. The owner of the land is Greenway, owned by my father.
But you're the
He
developer.
invests in all my properties, and I'm the architect builder. This will be my sixth. I've done 6 homes in Highland Park and Preston Hollow, but I've also worked in New York City designing hotels around the world. My goal has always been to elevate spec home standards because today builders are just building cookie cutter, copy paste plans. And I do believe that every homeowner deserves a better home that's more efficient, better laid out, materials that are going to last through weather and through age. And so that's what I've really focused my studies on and my entire 15 years of practicing in this field.
Any questions? Commissioner Finley.
Thank you. Would you be willing to meet with the neighbors, to sit down and talk to them as far as, listening to their concerns and see if there's any way that you can kind of maneuver what you're looking at
Yes.
and make it compatible to what they'll be happy with?
Yeah, of course. I mean, even my engineers at Hamilton Duffy, I've already gotten on their nerves because I say, guys, I need more green space. I want to put a community garden in the back. I want to put a boulevard between the roads so when people drive up, they see trees. They don't just see concrete. So our goal is to already make it a better than the other people that have already been approved. And all we're asking for is a straight zoning because time is of the essence. It's going to take us 3 to 4 years to develop this property, and we'll do it in a respectful manner. But yes, I would love to meet our neighbors. Every single property I've done in Highland Park and Preston Hollow, I'm still friends with our neighbors and the owners that still live there. I'm that type of developer. You're not going to get the big guys that don't know your names.
Well, and that's really important because they're going to be your neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are the people that are dug in there.
Yes,
and
yes.
they're the ones that have lived there.
As I am, yes.
Yes.
My
and
my
you
uncle
understand
lives
that.
across the street on Zinfandel. My sister just bought a house on Callender, 1 block south in a gated neighborhood. So the one that relocated, she relocated here because it's a much more elegant neighborhood. So I understand the neighbors are important because the neighbors are my family as well.
Then what I would like for you to consider is to continue this case and till you have an opportunity to meet with your neighbors and see if you can come to some compromises as to what would be best for all of you on this development. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, willing to do that, but I would request for an approval of the straight zoning in order for us to move forward with better designs, the planning of the area, and to show that simply all we're asking for is to do equivalent of everyone else that's built there. Our goal is actually not to build 10,000 square foot lots because I think those days are done. I think Americans can't afford those lots anymore, and Americans' electricity costs, efficiency, construction costs can't support those costs anymore. So the 7.2 was our gesture of saying, we want to match the neighborhood. We want to build 26 modest, beautiful homes here, farmhouse, mid-century style with brick, stone, etc., and provide green spaces in between us and the neighbors.
Well, and that's my problem, is that I can't really support a straight zoning without you meeting with these neighbors.
Yeah, not an issue.
Okay.
I'll meet, I understand that's your point of view.
Okay.
I'm still going to meet them regardless.
Okay,
So, yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, so that everybody's on the same page, they
Yes,
know what's going in, they know what kind of house you're gonna build, houses.
Yeah. I put a presentation, but they told me to keep it out. It was a really nice, like, architectural presentation.
Yeah, see, and I think that's what your neighbors need to see.
Yeah, I wish
think, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that in next time. It was taken out.
So you were agreeable to do
Yes,
a
of course.
continuance?
A nice coffee shop. There's plenty down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Just for clarification. She's asking for you to she's asking you to say to us tonight that you want to continue the case, that you do not want a vote tonight.
Oh, I would like a vote tonight because it's just, it's pretty simple. We are the last 3 pieces of land. There's 4. We purchased the last 3 to develop this neighborhood. And there's 2 greenways, the electrical lines, and Kuykendall, the piece of land that we did not buy, that was offered to us. So I will meet with the neighbors regardless because they'll be my neighbors for the next 5 years and on. Our name is on the door, and I always make sure that we make ourselves and our product proud. So I will meet with those neighbors, but I would like for approval so we can get to work.
And back to you, Commissioner Finley, I'm sorry that I interrupted.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I'm
That's
not
okay.
gonna be able to support this if you don't go with the continuance. I'm
No, that's okay.
sorry.
I appreciate it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sumter?
I see your point about meeting with the neighbors, but you gotta remember, this is not the last step in the whole process. They'll have to go through a preliminary plat, which they're gonna be right back in front of us all. And I think you could probably ask that question then, have you met with the neighbors? And if they haven't, then there's a discussion as well. You know, he's asking for straight zoning. I think it's complementary to what's to the east. It's zoned RS72. I counted roughly 38 homes over there, I think. I could be wrong. The density is less than what RS72 allows. It probably will have less than 26 lots. I don't know if they looked at their drainage, but that's a whole plating thing. They may have to do detention, but they have to meet all of our standards that we have set in place. So I think we give them a vote tonight, and you choose to vote no, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, let him move down to city council and let them take a position on that. Because I think the homes in Twin Hills look wonderful. I think that's John Houston Homes.
They're
The
doing a
gated
great job.
community
Yeah.
just to the south of you is wonderful. I mean, it took forever for that to develop, but those are beautiful houses. And I was just curious, your other developments that you've done, are they comparable in size to this one, or?
The other spec homes I've done are 5,000 to 7,000 square feet
Okay.
because that was a pre-COVID era when land in Dallas was a little bit more approachable. But each one of those houses were spec, and each one of those houses were built beyond Dallas City Code. In fact, our environmental studies for those houses, we passed blower door test. The electric bill for the 7,000 square foot house with a detached garage was $150 in the peak of summer, which is unheard of because of the way we plan our homes. We're not here to, my father always said, when you build that house, your name's on the front door, and people are gonna remember my name especially, because it's very long. So I've always worn that proud, and so with the other builders that have built such great products, solid CMU, brick, et cetera, we're gonna follow that standard, if not exceed it, because we wanna make sure it keeps up to the standards of the neighborhood, and all the city work that's been done with the roundabouts and the new roads.
And if I may, I'm sorry, just a few other things, sorry, Dirk. Some comments made from those who spoke, the school population, I mean, that's really not our purview. That's Mansfield ISD, I think. So they need to address that, which I think they certainly could. Utilities, again, that's going to be engineering staff that we rely on here if water pressure is an issue. This development can't make it any worse. So you just be aware that there is city staff here that look after you as a homeowner and resident just like us, that this development can't make anything worse for you. And HOAs, yeah, unfortunately, our city requires HOAs on any residential development that is even thought of in this city. It's great that you probably live in an area that doesn't have one, but that's just a standard that they have to live by, and it's a requirement. And on the notifications, I would assume that we met all standards for notifying within the 200-foot buffer, put the signs up. So we notify per state law and our city requirements.
Yeah, for our neighbors, we applied for this, I think, a couple months ago, 3-4 months ago. So we've just been waiting for this meeting. It wasn't trying to be a surprise tactic. Clifford emailed us last week when he put up the signs, and we were notified of that.
Other questions of this speaker? Commissioner Carter?
I think it's a great product. I think it's, all night we've been hearing about the building apartments and getting people here. Well, this is, the apartments, they stay here 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
This, they'll stay 15 to 25 years in the custom home.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is really what we're looking for if we are trying to keep the engineers here, the UTA graduates, the teachers, the coaches, the doctors. This is what they're going to stay for. They're not going to stay for these apartments we keep building here, but they will stay for this.
Yeah,
so I think it's a great project, and it's way better than what. This is a way better solution than what could happen 5 years down the line if you hold the property. The neighbors could be facing some other type of adverse zoning change request that would be not favorable. So it's a like in kind, and I think it's a perfect fit.
Thank you. Commissioner Payne?
I just want to agree with Commissioner Sumner and Commissioner Carter. I think it is a great product, and it's bringing homes here. And we do need more homes, and we do need our people to stay here that do have good jobs. So I think it is a good product for us, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Ware?
I will agree with commissioners at the other end. Looking at this, the RS 7.2, as you said, as others have said, completely surrounds this area. Unfortunately, folks, that's what it's destined for, like it or not. And I understand the way you all feel sitting out there in the audience, but we have to look at it from the standpoint of what is best for that area, what is the best development type for that area. And it being surrounded by 7.2, it's the only thing it's going to end up doing at some point is going to go to even smaller lots and more density. That's just inevitable for you. I'm sorry. This gentleman's not actually backing up to Kirkendall. He's leaving a lot in there. Maybe something that you can pick up to get you the size lots and the buffer that you desire. So it's something for you to consider on that as well. But as it stands, I have to go for this too.
Any other questions? Sir, thank you for speaking. I have one final card in opposition, Pat Calabrese. You've marked as a non-speaker. Do you want to remain a non-speaker, or would you like to come forward and say something? Name and city, please.
My name is Pat Calabrese, Arlington, Texas. Thank you for hearing me tonight. The developers here are talking about 7.2 lots, as you've been mentioning many times, but what they're also talking about is 3,000 square foot homes. When Twin Hills was put in a number of years ago, it really changed the character of that neighborhood. One of the things that drew myself and many of my neighbors to this area of Southwest Arlington is that we have a city of 400,000 people and all the amenities that go along with it, the ballpark, the stadium, the theme parks, and all the shopping and stores you could want. But you still have this character of suburban, almost rural living in this area. And that's going away with these developments coming in. Yeah, they adhere to the size of the lots that you request, but you're talking about all hat and no cattle, big giant houses with no yards in them. We like our yards. We like sitting out on our patios on a nice night and you know, sitting there listening to music and having a drink or whatever. We enjoy that. These houses that are going in there aren't going to have that at all. It's going to be all house with no lot behind it. It changes the character of the neighborhood. And that's what I'm really in opposition to. I'm fine with development. Change is inevitable. I totally agree with that. We're talking about 6.25 acres here, but we're only talking about 4 houses there. So that gives you an idea of the character of this neighborhood. If the developers were to try to put in, let's say, 8 houses instead, or 9, something like that, you know, facing the street, facing Calendar Road, as opposed to building a big U-shaped road, I might be in support of it. I might be okay with that because, yeah, you're developing, building some new houses, making a tiny profit, but not forever changing the character of this neighborhood. But that's what's being presented here, and that's the main reason why I'm opposed to this. 27 houses in this neighborhood is just too much. Even half of that might be too much. It's just jamming 5 pounds of dirt into a 10-pound bag. And then, as mentioned before, all things go along with it. The school zoning, the amount of kids going to these schools, the traffic resulting from the area, the strain on the resources that exist there. It's not going to be a good look for this neighborhood, and I think it will eventually work against itself and drive people away because it will make that neighborhood look like so much of the rest of Arlington where its houses is jammed in together. That's not what we came down here for. That's not why I live in that area. And so I hope that you will see my argument and vote in opposition to this case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have no other cards in opposition. Is there anyone else in opposition that would like to speak that has not spoken? Hearing none, it's at this time that I ask for the applicant, if they would like to rebut what was said. They have how many minutes do they get? 5? You have a 5-minute opportunity to rebut any comments or concerns that were made by the opposition.
I just have a couple of things that I wrote down. One, you already brought up that our project doesn't go. There is a buffer between a lot of the residents and the development, so that buffer will be there. As far as the utilities question, doing our due diligence and our research through the city map room, we pulled the plans for the neighborhood to the east of us here, Echo Lake Court, and water and sewer is already stubbed out for future development of this property, so it's already been planned, as well as drainage also there. I mean, there's already drainage flumes that go through 2 of those existing lots to drain to Echo Lake, so this area right here has been planned for future development when the Echo Lake Court neighborhood was developed. And as far as any traffic issues or street problems, Calendar Road has been very nicely redone, and as an engineer, typically you don't redo a street into what Calendar Road is now without building it to full developed future. So that's really all the notes I have right now. I'm happy to answer any other questions if anybody has any.
Any other questions? Commissioner Weir.
I'm trying to tell on the, what would be east side of the lot, the back of the lot there, backing up to Echo Lake Court, there are about, appears to be about 8 houses on Echo Lake Court, across the back of your property, what it looks like here to me. I can't tell from this screen what you have there. Can you put the other one up that show the better borders?
1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
how do
4,
I
5,
go backwards?
6. There's 6 on his, back up to,
Oh, there we go.
there you go, that's it.
Okay. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you've got 8 on Echo Lake, and you've got that back up to your property, and there's 6 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So in essence, we've got less
It's less dense.
less on the border from your area than on the Echo Lake side, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm pretty sure there would be more on the northern border versus Kirkendall. But how big is that buffer there? How many feet wide? Do you know?
I'm not sure
80,
how
100
wide that
feet?
lot is. I mean, it's an acre and a half lot. I'm not really 100% sure on the width of it.
It's pretty wide.
Okay.
Here, let me see if I can. That shows a little better.
There you go.
That shows our
Right.
the lot. Yeah.
There's 2 lots on Echo, and they've got to be at least 60 foot wide, so it's at least 120 feet. Guessing.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant? Can you ask a question? No, you have to actually come forward to speak. Okay, but see that part, this is his time to rebut the opposition. So you've already had an opportunity to speak. So I can't let you come back up here. I'm sorry. Commissioner Finley.
Thank you. Okay, so when I look at the staff report, coordination with other plans, this does not meet, it does not align with the comprehensive plan. And I'm taking it that the reason is because the area recommends a low density of 4 units per single acre, and this is 6-point-some acres, correct?
I believe you're correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and you plan to put 26 single-family homes on there. If you did away with 2, would that put him in compliance with the comprehensive plan?
Well,
The comprehensive plan calls for rural residential. I don't think 7,200 square foot lots are not considered rural.
Rural. Okay. All right, that was my thing. And here's my situation, and thank you, Commissioner Sumter, for pointing out that they have to come back for plating, because I had totally forgotten about that. My situation here is, we have these comprehensive plans set up for a reason, and if we just foo-foo that off, for developments, then I think that we got a real problem. I would prefer to abide by the comprehensive plan that we have in place. So, I just don't know how I'm going to vote on this now. I mean, I understand what Commissioner Sumter said, but I also believe that we have these plans in place to abide by them. And I really wish that we could come up with some sort of compromise to be able to make that happen and still be in compliance with the plan that we have in place. Thank you.
Commissioner Sumter.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it overlooked the comprehensive plan. And knowing that the layout that we keep on looking at is not set in stone. We all understand that. And there's 27 lots. We know that could be a possibility. We know 6.2 rough acres, that's a fact. You do the math, you're at 4.3 units an acre, which is close to 4 units is what's stating here. So I'm curious to staff of why the statement was made in the staff report that the rezoning to RS72 does not align with the comprehensive plan. How is that if we're at 4 units an acre potentially with a conceptual layout? And it really, in my mind, can't change that much. There's not much else you could do with it unless go less, which will just decrease the density even more. So just thoughts there.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Well, it was a question of why is the statement in the staff report rezoning to RS 7.2 does not align with the comprehensive plan? I was just curious where that came from.
Please come to the microphone, Mr. Colston.
That was basically with the comprehensive plan. Again, I think it didn't specify, but more rural lots, larger size lots, larger than the 7,200 square foot. Didn't necessarily specify what that is, but just thinking maybe what it's already zoned, maybe the RE lots, maybe something to that nature. But just for the comprehensive plan didn't necessarily specify the exact lot type or size. It just meant more of a rural, lots and more of a rural nature or
But
feel.
if that's the case, then the people that live in the development just to the east of us, they wouldn't comply with the comprehensive plan either, right?
Correct. But that, in different time, kind of apples to oranges comparison, it may not necessarily meet what the comprehensive plan says, but it fits what's there.
Yeah.
It matches, it's complementary to what's there.
Complementary, right. Okay, I just want to make a point there.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions of the applicant? Sir, I think we're done. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for any closing comments from the commissioners. And while anyone has any comments to make, I'll make mine. I'm going to be supportive of this project. You know, I appreciate the comment about the comprehensive plan. I remember in 1975, I was driving up and down Callender Road when there was nothing there. There were some really nice houses on multiple acres of lots. And as time has passed, that rural area has obviously changed dramatically. Having driven all around, I went through all of the neighborhoods except for the ones that were gated that I couldn't get into. But I could see pretty well into them, and I've looked at all the aerial pictures. You know what would be worse is if the applicant was here requesting RS5. And that would be much worse for the neighborhood. And that's why I'm going to vote for this. This is really, I think, one of the best things that could go in here that would be the closest to preserving the neighborhood to where it's not going to make anybody happy, but it could be a heck of a lot worse than what it is than what's being requested right now. So I'm going to be in support of it. Does anyone have any other comments before I call for the vote? I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Sumter. I have a second by Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Sumter, would you state your motion, please?
I move to approve zoning case ZA 24-8 as presented.
Commissioner Payne, is that your second?
It is.
Please cast your votes. Motion passes 8 yeas to none. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to our final, is it? No, it's not the final one. Oh, doggone. We're going to be here for a while. Zoning case PD 24-9, 108 Hosack Street, This is an application for an approval of a zoning change to a PD for RM12 on approximately 3/4 of an acre. Right now, it's currently zoned RMF 22, multifamily 22, and residential medium density 12. At this time, I will call on staff to make their presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Kevin Charles, Principal Planner, Planning and Development Services. This evening, we'll be looking at PD 24-9, also known as 108 Hosack Street. Again, this is a case that came before you or was on the agenda previously and did get continued in order to make sure they had the ability to address some of the issues that they heard and feedback from commissioner members, as well as some things that they felt that they wanted to change to make more appealing for the commission. As you mentioned, the current zoning on the property is RMF 22 and RM 12. The request is a PD for RM 12 uses with a development plan. As you see here, highlighted in yellow is the site in question. It is 3 lots that would be eventually replatted after this, should this case be recommended for approval and eventually approved by City Council. The property to the north across Hosack Street is zone PD for RMF 22. It is the Arley to the north across Hosack Street. I'm sorry, it's currently developed as Live Plus. The property to the south is RMF, RM12. The properties are currently undeveloped. One of the properties is developed with a unit. The properties to the east are zoned RM12. And the properties to the west across Center Street is UTA, University of Texas at Arlington. Portion of the properties are zoned RM12, but however, they're being used as parkland, as you can see the improved park trail system there. All right. The subject site is currently vacant and located east of the University of Texas at Arlington. Of course, UTA's growth has driven residential development in the area to accommodate the expanding student and employee population. The photographs you see on the screen are photographs of the site. The first photograph, if we start at the top left-hand corner and proceed clockwise, is a view of Live Plus, which is to the north across Hosack Street. The second photograph is a view of the site itself from Center Street. The third photograph is a view of the not trailhead, but of the parks trail system across South Center Street from the property. And the last view is a view looking south from Hosack of the subject site in its current configuration. So there have been several plan updates since the last time that you saw this particular project. And since then, the plan is reflecting 2-story homes with the minimum air-conditioned living space of 1,500 square feet. That increased from what was previously proposed of 12. 5 4-bedroom homes, 1 3-bedroom home, 1 4-bedroom home. Paved stone entrance has been incorporated from Hosack. Carriage-style street lamps have been incorporated to add a little bit of architecture and refinery to the site. The masonry is painted tumble brick. Cementitious siding and trim is now on all non-street facing elevations. Metal standing seam roofing, which was on it originally. Carriage-style wood look garage doors, which are upgraded garage doors. They will have walkout second floor decks. Private patios, internal fences are all ornamental metal, and private backyards screened from Center Street by a stone fence with a masonry accent feature, I guess you would say, along the top, 1.5 to 2 feet. The development plan. The intent of the applicant is to establish a 7-unit development. This 7-unit development will be located in 5 structures. 2 of those structures will be duplexes, and those are the ones that are actually closest to Hosack Street. And then 3 of the units will be single-family detached style units. This would equate to approximately 9 dwelling units per acre for the site, okay? The site only has 1 point of access that it is taking, and that point of access is located on Hosack. This gives you a better look at the site with the building design, or a more realistic look at the site. So as you look at it here, you'll see the view from Hosack. You can see the proposed paved stone entrance off of Hosack, along with what would be a new sidewalk, because Hosack, at least there, doesn't have a sidewalk. On the South Center Street side, you're able to see the masonry fence that they are proposing with the ornamental iron and the masonry columns along South Center to give you an improved look from South Center Street. And again, you also get a better chance to take a look at the elevations. Noted the one down in the left, in the bottom right-hand corner, is a look as if you were in the court area, looking at the rear of those particular units or that face on to South Center Street. There are a few deviations with the particular site. One is the minimum lot area of 2,900 square feet being required for RM 12 lots. The minimum lot area here being proposed is 2,495. The proposed development requires a lot depth of 100 feet due to the formation of the way the lot is laid out and what's there. The minimum lot requested is going to be 77 feet. We talked about the setbacks in the work session this evening, and we talked about the fact that the minimum street side yard, even though it should be 20, it is 10 due to the fact that, one, the units are actually facing South Center Street. They're not truly side yards. That's a matter of the design, as well as the one that where we talked about 20 feet for a rear street. That street in the rear is not a public right-of-way. It is a dedicated alleyway. So it is not a public right-of-way. It does not meet those, it's not required to meet those same requirements. And then last but not least, as I mentioned before, the entire site only has a few trees. Of those trees, only 13 caliper inches would be 35% of the protected trees, caliper inches on the site. The applicant is coming in, they're planting 75 caliper inches of newly planted trees. No tree preservation is being proposed due to the limitations of the lots. Coordination with other plans. I think it's important to note that to develop our land and value our neighborhood strategies as they relate to this particular site, kind of write it out for you. Provide a mix of quality housing for a diverse population, and encourage the development of housing choices that meet the needs of current and emerging populations, including singles, couples, small and large families, empty nesters, and seniors. Promote land use patterns that reflect a mix of integrated community uses. So you encourage the development of multiple types of single-family housing, such as quality, well-designed, detached dwelling, townhomes, condominiums, and zero lot line homes. Should the commission be inclined to recommend approval of the request, as I mentioned before, the only stipulation that staff has as a recommendation for improvement is to increase the stamped or paved stone entry so that it covers the entire motor court. For a more enhanced or more regal feature as you arrive home off of Hosack Drive for the residents that would be living there. The applicant is DeShula and Terry Stanton and Associates. The owners, Armin Gregorian. Staff is available if there are any questions or comments in reference to this particular development.
Seeing none, we're going to open the public session and call for the first speaker. Will the applicant please come forward?
Thank you.
Remember your name and only your city.
My name is Joyce Stanton. I live in Pantego. Well, I wish I could, anyway. So this project is on Center Street. As you've noted, it's immediately south of a large student housing project. It's, some of it's zoned R22 and some of it's zoned 12, and we're asking for it to all become 12, and it's a PD. This is how the lots are currently laid out. You can see there's the 22 zones on the corner, and the RM12s are the 3 lots beside it. It's currently vacant. And we did look at, for the owner, you know, how we could just cut them out and they'd go straight to the street for what he wanted to do, but he didn't want that. He wanted something with a little more character. So we had to put on thinking caps and come up with how we could get the density he needed and some more character. We already talked about the zoning, and you've seen that the student housing is to the north, the land's vacant to the south. It looks at a vacant lot that's also zoned, though, across an alley and is zoned for the medium density. And of course, across Center Street, you see the park and the university. So this is our site, and this is the layout. We came up with 7 lots. 4 of them are 2 single-family attached, and 3 of them are single-family detached. The lot size we are asking for a variance on the lot size, and you can tell a lot of it's because we are providing large detention areas. They're very shallow, and we want to put some landscaping in them and make them very attractive. But they did take up a lot of our lot room. So we will have green space, but the actual individual lot sizes that people can own are smaller. These are, they're not for students. They would be for the professionals and for professors and others that want to live in the downtown area, but they want to live in their own home on their, they'll be individually platted. They'll have separate water meters, sewer services. They'll have the trash bins we all have. This is a typical floor plan. One of the big changes we made was the owner wanted a bedroom downstairs. He said if some of the people living in these homes age, they won't want to climb upstairs to go to bed every night, so we had to put as many downstairs bedrooms in the units as we could. So you have most of the units, there's one we couldn't make it happen, have a downstairs bedroom, and that was one of the big changes between when we were trying to originally get on the agenda and where we are today. This was the view. I'm trying to get to the landscape plan. The landscape architect is here, but one of the requests we are asking for is we could not mitigate any of the trees for various reasons. Most of them are under the power lines and they're diseased or poorly cut, and we can let her speak to that too if you have some specific questions about each of the individual trees. But you can see that we are providing, let's see, how do you do that? We're providing the extra landscaping in the detention ponds so that it will, some attractiveness. And then to simulate sheet flow, instead of 1 or 2 discharges through the retaining wall, creating the detention pond, there will be several very small openings so that it simulates sheet flow. There'll be less areas for it to come out of. So you won't have one big pipe with it blasting out. You'll have about 12, little 4 and 6 inch pipes for it to come out of. And then it will flow to Center Street just like it currently does. Currently, it flows down to the alley and then out to Center Street. It'll continue to flow out to the alley and then out to Center Street. This is some pictures of the trees that we took when we were doing the survey and just to help emphasize why we are not able to keep any of the trees, but we're mitigating all of them. These are our large detention areas that you can see. There'll also be open space because they're shallow, and they will drain completely within a maximum of 24 hours. On the big events, it'll take a little longer for them to drain, of course. On the smaller events, they'll drain faster. And but the entire area needs to drain to the detention ponds, so everybody's little private backyards will have ornamental metal fences so that the flow can go through them, because as you can see, this swell comes around like this to the detention. These come through these go to the detention pond, so the fences have to be ornamental metal so the drainage can go through. We were excited to come up with this to allow them to have, the more creative than just cutting the frontage into the 60-foot. And so we had a neighborhood meeting, and we mailed out over 53 invitations. We ended up only having 6 different actual properties represented. Some of them brought their whole family because we did serve refreshments. So some of them, that was dinner, which is okay. We did not have, we only had one opposition come, and she didn't like the traffic on Center Street, and I'm afraid our development can't do anything to affect the traffic on Center Street. So we told her, we're not going to do anything to reduce the visibility. We have visibility triangles for the alley, and all of our plantings will meet the appropriate visibility setbacks, but we can't change the traffic on Center Street, whether we do this development or not. So I am available for questions, and/or in a minute, we can let the landscape architect come up if you want to talk about the trees some more, or anything that you want to talk about.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Carter.
I think the project's going to look really good there, but I got a couple of questions for you. They are going to be marketed for lease or marketed for sale?
The owner is here. They are set up so that they can be sold, but how he's going to market them, do you want the owner to come on up?
Yeah, and let me ask this other question too. You said not marketed for students, so I would, it won't be for students, but have y'all done the market research on 4 bedrooms in the neighborhood especially for rentals? It's usually a tougher type of property to lease. And I just wanted you to be.
I'll have to ask you to let the owner answer that
Okay.
one too, yes.
Okay, yeah, so we can wait for the owner to come up, or do you want him to come up now?
No, sir. Would you come up so you can answer that question, please? Please give us your name and the city that you live in.
Good evening, Armand Grigorian from Sherman Oaks.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Carter, would you like to repeat
Yeah,
your?
I would. So basically, will they be marketed for sell or for lease? What's your goal with these?
So it really depends on where the market goes once we're done, and where our financial situation is. So we may sell some, we may keep some, or we may just, keep the portfolio. My bread and butter is single-family residences, and I develop in Sherman Oaks, California area. And build to rent is one of the hottest portfolios now out there that's coming up in the real estate investment world. So that's what I'm trying to do in here. So depending on where the market is, you would have to adjust.
Okay. Have you done the market research on 4-bedroom rentals? And do you feel confident in that it's the right location for it?
So not too many available, and that's one of the reasons I feel very confident about it, because you don't have too many available. And it's a different type of product that would be a niche product for that area.
Okay. And would you ever, do you plan on furnishing these units? Renting them as furnished or short-term rental?
It depends, again, on where the market is at the time.
Okay.
We have properties in Sherman Oaks, California, where we have furnished and we rent it out to traveling nurses as well, 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time. So really depends on where the market is.
This location is actually outside of the short-term rental district for Arlington, so, but I understand maybe if it's a PD, but it would be, it could be difficult to do that with, so that's why I was checking on with you about that. So,
Yeah, again, once we're done, depends where the market is.
okay, all right, thank you.
So I have a question for staff. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it publicly anyway. So, yes, this piece of property is outside of the short-term rental area. It's not in the entertainment district. Therefore, it's my understanding that if this, even if it's a PD, this base zoning is still RM12. Therefore, by right, the owner could do short-term rentals if they chose to. Correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. So, my question to you, sir, is, would you be comfortable with this body adding to the ordinance that governs your property a clause that says no short-term rentals are allowed? Let me warn you.
Possible.
Okay, let me warn you, I'm going to add that, and that's how this motion's going to get passed. Otherwise, it's probably not going to get passed. So you need to think through that in a minute, because I'm not in favor of allowing short-term rentals on this street, not near UTA. You're probably going to use this for students, but that's not what we're being asked to do here. I'm not going to tell you as a business person what is the proper way for you to use these. I have to decide whether or not this is the highest and best use of this land. You've come back with a better product. I've got to give you that. And so right now I'm in favor of passing it, but it'll be with the clause, no short-term rentals. Commissioner Finley?
This is also for staff. Mr. Charles, we didn't mention this today at work session, but I do recall that there is a gas well across the street. Because of the removing some buildings, and are we past that 300 minimum setback?
We are still right at the edge of that 300-foot minimum setback.
You are right at the edge,
Literally right
even
on the edge.
after
Yes,
doing,
ma'am.
okay.
Even after all of that was done. And I think that our gas well team did reply and
Yeah,
send some information.
and that was before they did the moving of the buildings and
Yeah.
stuff. The email that I received said, it's tough in this site because it's UTA property, right?
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, ma'am.
we are gonna enforce the setback for the proposed development.
Yeah, it's still right, it literally is right on the edge. Living home is right on the edge of that 300-foot radius. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to make sure
Yeah,
of.
it didn't resolve that particular.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sumter.
It's for staff, another question. Sorry. I just waited for you to walk over there. Come back.
I need a badge.
And I apologize. I probably should have asked this at work session, but,
That's
and I've looked at this, I don't know how many times. There's 2 site plans in the package. So which one would we be?
Is there?
Yes, sir. I just flipped through it and there's 2 site plans.
Can you tell me what the difference is between the two? One of them should have the court in the front. That is the court coming from Hosack Street.
Well, I could probably figure out which one it is. There's one dated September 10th, and then there's one dated November 15th, which is
Yeah,
probably.
November is gonna be the older one, but it also has the square truck court. One of them, if I'm thinking correctly, there was a island, like a little island in the drive approach on the other one that came in
The-
September, and that's removed. Okay, so the old site plan, yes, is the September one, and it was in the back of the site plan in the back of the development plan. I apologize for that. They are extremely similar. One of them, there's a island, for the original drive approach that came in. You'll see a triangular shape. I'm not looking at it at the same time, so I apologize. The new truck court the new auto court is what was changed on the approach, as well as the stamped, drive approach.
Yep.
So I apologize.
No, it's just, if we're gonna make a motion, I just wanna make sure everybody understands what
Yeah,
they're.
we'll get that cleaned up. They
voting
are
on.
very, very similar with a very, very minor change.
Okay.
So it was difficult, so.
Thank you very much. Any other questions of the Commissioner Greer?
Are you willing to agree to staff's recommendations to expand the stamped concrete pavers for that motor court area?
Sure, I was just discussing that with Joyce. With stamped concrete taken into the front of the other homes, I feel like that's gonna be loud. Someone's coming home from work, let's say 1 a.m, and then someone's gotta get up early. I think the tires would make some more noise. I mean, we can do that, or we can offer another, future to it, but we're open to that. That's no problem, but I thought that would be noisy when you're driving in like 1 a.m. with the stamped concrete. But we can add, definitely no issue with that.
I think it would look nice, and hopefully they're not going 40 miles an hour through
Yeah,
there. so-
yeah, it's just, with the new tires coming up, a little
Yeah.
bit more rougher.
And I had one more question. I think last time we were here, or we looked at this, I'd asked a question about possibly burying the overhead lines at the northwest corner of the site. Do you know if there was any discussion with Encore if that was possible or not?
Not yet. Yeah,
But you'd be willing to look into that?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions to my right, to my left? Commissioner Carter?
Did I notice what roof type is on these structures?
We have metal roof.
Metal roof?
Yeah.
I've got a question for staff, and pardon me for not knowing, but Mr. Charles, is a metal roof in the UDC, and it's an allowable use in the UDC?
Yes, sir. Standing seam metal is an allowed roofing material per the UDC.
Okay.
And that's what they're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions to my left or my right? Thank you, sir.
If I can make a comment
Please-
regarding
please
student
do.
housing.
You bet.
For sure, we can add that it's not gonna be student housing, so. That's not the type of product we're building there, and I don't have anything against student housing, but that's not my portfolio. And I would not rent these properties out to students because of the quality of the homes we're gonna build there. So we can even add that in there, that will never be rented as student housing.
Yeah, okay. What about the short-term rental question?
Sure, we can add it in there.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sempter?
I agree with the short-term rental, but I don't think we should make a position on student housing, because I don't think we want to get into who can live there and not, so.
Especially if he sells the property. and-
Exactly.
And that carries forward, that would carry forward, and it is across the street from UTI.
Yeah, and there might be a graduate student who wants to live there. I mean, short-term rentals I get, but I don't think we can say you can't go to students, so.
Yep, okay.
I was just saying.
Yeah, so we're not gonna, whoever makes the motion is probably not going to mention anything about student housing, but it will mention the short-term rental. Any other comments, questions of the applicant? Sir, thank you. I have also some cards, a non-speaker, Nasim Adi. Okay, did you want to say anything, or you're okay? All right. I have also in support Alice Malier or Malin? Did you want to say anything? No. Let's see, Joyce, you spoke, Armand, you spoke. That's it. Are there any, is there anyone here in opposition that would like to speak in opposition? Very good. Are there any, before I close the public session, do the commissioners have any other questions of the applicant? I'm going to close the public session at this time. And since there are no further speakers, this is our opportunity to make comments and to make a motion. And let me get out of here and go here. Okay. All right. So I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ware and a second by Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Ware, would you please state your motion?
Pavestone entry.
Commissioner Ware, can you start over, please?
Okay.
So we can get that recorded.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve this as presented, but also require the stamped pavestone entry so that it covers the entire mortar court. Require, as we always do, painting and maintenance of the hardy board every 10 years minimum, and no short-term rentals.
Commissioner Payne, is that your second?
That is.
Thank you. Please cast your vote. Motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to, I believe, the final case. That was Hosek, page 7, page 8. All right, zoning case, PD 24-29, located approximately 2809 Northwest Green Oaks Boulevard. This is application for an approval of a PD for community commercial uses, plus a car wash with a development plan on 1.6 acres approximately. And Mr. Golston, if you'll go ahead and present the case, please.
Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Clifford Golston, Principal Planner, Planning and Development Services. We have for you PD 24-29, addressed at 2809 Northwest Green Oaks Boulevard. This is site is zoned community commercial with a request for a planned development for community commercial uses plus a car wash. And these are the site location, again, is located just west of Northwest Green Oaks Boulevard, just at the point, one of the entry points actually into the site is where West Wendell Mill ends, and actually I-30 is going to be roughly to the north, a little to the north of the site. And these are site photos. As you can see, the first one is the subject site, showing there's an existing convenience store, gas station convenience store on the site, as well as you have the existing car wash. You have the to the north and the south, you have the FEMA designated floodway area, and to the east of the site, you have the commercial uses and some multifamily a little farther east as well. And this is an aerial view of the site, just showing the car wash. Again, this site was constructed, the convenience store, gas station, and car wash was constructed at a time when, you know, roughly those type of uses were constructed in conjunction with one another. And the reason they're here for the car wash is actually, for the PD is actually, at one time, prior to the updates to the UDC 2013, I believe, a car wash was allowed in community commercial. However, with the updates, it wasn't allowed in community commercial. And what happens, the applicant, they actually had the car wash. It was in use up until November of last year. But what they were doing is they were actually changing the equipment. It's going to remove it was older equipment. And so they were removing it to put better equipment in. And it kind of, with inflation prices and things, they couldn't afford the new equipment. So when you come back with the use, that takes away their legally non-conforming use, which is why we're here today for the PD. So essentially what they're gonna do, again, this is the car wash and just a street view of the site. It's an existing structure. They did do some exterior work, some painting on the structure. They're gonna just go back in and add the newer equipment into the car wash, into that existing structure. They aren't increasing the size of the structure or anything like that, just adding that equipment to continue that car wash use. And these are just some of the existing elevations of the car wash. And the site is, again, with it being an older site, it is an older site. However, it does meet a lot of pretty much it does meet today's requirements, UDC requirements, with the exception of there's a small portion in the front landscape setback that it meets the 15-foot for the most part, but there's a small portion that kind of goes down to 10-foot. But what the applicant is doing, they're gonna, which is the one thing they can kind of control on the site, is within that landscape buffer, they're gonna exceed the amount of shrubs, and they're gonna meet the amount. They're gonna go back in and do the plantings for the required amount of trees on the site. So, and this is the car wash saturation map, just showing car washes within a 2-mile buffer of the area. 2-mile radius of the area. There are 3 car washes. They're all your older model self-service car washes within that 2-mile buffer. And there's, as mentioned, the 1 deviation for the site, and that's with the landscape buffer that kind of goes into the 10 feet. However, the applicant is adding the required landscaping to meet the required landscaping for the sites within that buffer. All right, and this this is an established residential area, which provides neighborhood parks, schools, various types of retail. This does provide a neighborhood convenience use for the area and is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. The applicant is LE Engineering Wash Systems, represented by Luis Hernandez and Eric Cabor, with the owner being Rahul Ghanshyam. Staff is available for any questions.
Commissioner Finley.
Thank you. Were you able to find out whether or not the gas station changed ownership since they took out?
Okay, yes, okay, I couldn't figure out who asked the question. But it changed owners, but this was the same owner at the time. Again, it goes back to, they were just changing out the equipment within there, because it was older equipment in bad shape, so they were changing it out, which got us to this point.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Hearing none, we're going to open the public session and ask for the applicant to come forward and speak. I believe Luis Hernandez. Mr. Hernandez, if you'll state your name for the record in the microphone and the city that you live in.
Luis Hernandez, Fort Worth.
Thank you.
So I'm here to pretty much answer any questions. It's pretty straightforward. There's, nothing's changing. We'll meet all the new updated standards. We'll do all the new landscaping. We're gonna repaint the building, including the gas station side. Restrap the parking lot, kind of bring it back to life a little bit. But as far as the car wash itself, it's gonna be just a brand new in-bay automatic, so it's not gonna be, it'll probably do 30 to 60 cars a day, so the traffic is not gonna change any traffic count, or it's just gonna be an extra addition to the gas station, I guess you could say. So it's gonna be a brand new piece of equipment, so we're not putting nothing that's gonna break down or nothing like that. So yes, if y'all have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Thank you very much, sir. Commissioner Greer.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, but on the little car wash heat map that staff presented, it showed another car wash just to the west of yours.
Correct.
Is that in operation, or is that closed? Because
No.
I feel like I've driven by it and it's not.
Yeah, that's actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's on East Chase. That's a big express car wash.
Excuse me, sir.
Well-
Can you step up to the microphone
Oh.
and speak into?
Yeah, that's on East Chase. That's a big tunnel express car wash.
Yeah, I know that one on East Chase, but that little yellow star, I think is that Valero. That's just.
It's next to the Valero
Yeah.
and a Lube and Tune on Meadowbrook.
Yeah, and I don't think that's an actual operating car wash, I guess is
Okay.
my
I think it is operating.
Is it? Okay.
It's up and down.
It is? Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Maybe that's recently changed.
No,
but,
is it, I'm sorry, is that in Arlington or is that in Fort? It is Arlington, okay, thank you. Okay.
All right, well, that was my question. I'm excited for,
Oh, yeah,
I
no,
pulled
you're
into
fine.
that gas station, into your gas station, wanting to get a car wash, and was disappointed that it was not working, so,
You got a customer.
yeah.
Commissioner Carter.
You mentioned painting the building. What did you have in mind for the painting on the updates with painting and exterior?
Whatever the city requires, you know, earth tone colors is kind of what, you know,
Okay.
we do.
It's out of a district for any type of murals or anything like that.
Oh, yeah,
so
no, we
just-
don't do that, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you know, and our company is LE Engineering. We're probably one of the bigger groups in Texas, so a lot of the new construction, like the big car washes, a lot of the developments through us, so, yeah, we definitely don't do no murals or, you know, we do a lot of modern look, you know, modern style color tones and stuff like that.
Commissioner Sumter.
A question for staff, please. Clifford? The request is PD for community commercial plus a car wash, is that correct?
Yes.
They're not excluding any land uses with this PD application?
No. Anything that's allowed within a commercial.
So the
community
itemized
commercial.
allowable uses that are in the staff report, those all could be allowed within the
Any-
CC?
Any community commercial uses, keep in mind, with it going to a PD, if they were to come, because there's only a small portion of the site. Everything around this east-west pretty much is floodway, so there's nothing that can be done. There's a small portion, this small portion here. So even, let's say they were to come back and develop that, it's gonna be a PD, so they would have to come back with a development plan, so you guys would see it.
So I would ask the applicant, would you be willing to not allow a pawn shop or firearm sales within the PD? Correct. Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, sir, thank you very much. Are there any speakers in opposition? There are no cards in opposition and no speakers. Therefore, do any of the commissioners have any final questions that they feel they need to ask? Commissioner Carter.
I would like clarification on I understand the car wash changes, but is the gas cells is the gas cells still gonna happen? And what's the main product sold inside the store? Is it vapes or food or?
It's your standard gas station convenience store if you were getting gas, standard convenience store gas station that you would go into.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I'm going to close the public session, ask for any comments, final comments from any of the commissioners, and/or a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Okay, need a motion. I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Greer. I have a second by Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Greer, would you please state your motion?
My motion is to approve case PD 24-29 with the restrictions that we remove pawn shop and firearm sales from the allowed use.
Is that your second, Commissioner Payne?
It is.
Cast your votes. Motion passes 8-0. Are there any reports from any other boards, commissions? Are there any final reports or announcements from staff?
No, sir.
So, finally, I want to remind everyone that the next regular session meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is on Wednesday, November the 13th, 2024.
Sorry, that should be December the 18th.
Oh, sorry. Wow. Let's cross that off. December 18th,
Correct.
2024 at 5:30 PM.
And we have 6 cases for
Oh,
you again,
wow.
including a gas well site.
So with that, next time bring your pajamas, and we will adjourn. Thank you very much.